All right.
Your
He
mic
said,
is on
okay.
the whole time.
Oh, I'm hot the whole time.
Yeah, so what would you say?
That's a loaded thing. Sorry. I hot? Oh, there we go. Good morning. How is everybody? Woo-hoo! All right, so for our folks online, we just got a few more minutes. We'll get started. We're still working on a little bit of the AV. But if you're on stream tonight or this afternoon, we will get started in a few minutes. We're trying to grab some folks. We can't have beverages in the theater, and so people are wanting to drink their coffee. So we just got a couple more minutes, and we'll get started. Is my mic on? Oh, there we go. Hello, good morning. Good morning. I've always wanted to do that. I've done it twice this week. So before we kick off the show, we are going to have some of our exhibitors that are out in the hall come and do a little introduction, because there's some amazing businesses and technologies happening out there, so I want to give them a little spotlight before we kick off. So first, we'll have them up at the podium doing their quick introduction.
Thank you. Okay, hello everybody, good morning. My name is Diana Parnian, and I'm one of the climate ambassadors for the En-ROADS simulator. So I encourage you to stop by the booth out there. So En-ROADS is a simulation tool that was created by MIT, Sloan Sustainability, and Climate Interactive. It's a powerful tool so you can test your climate policies and assess the impact of those policies. So if you're curious to know what is going to be our solution to climate change, if you're working in the space of nuclear, geothermal, or maybe carbon capture, and you want to test it out and see what is going to be the impact of what you're working on, don't forget to stop by our booth. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annalise Anderson. I work for Microseismic Inc. I work on the business development side for geothermal specifically. We help geothermal developers understand what's going on the subsurface with very detailed maps of their discrete fracture network so they can know where the groundwater is flowing to bring 24/7 renewable baseload energy to everyone. So stop by the Microseismic booth. I'd love to tell you all about microthermal energy and nerd out about geothermal.
Good morning, folks. I am Professor Tony Diaz, a Libro Traficante. I'm a professor, so I'm proud of all y'all who got here on time today. Okay? And I'm going to give you a little reward. So, Nuestra Palabra, Latinos having their say, we promote Latino literacy, literature, and culture. And now we're adding sustainability, which brings us to this amazing conference. And what we want to do for you, we've actually been giving away 100 copies of the anthology, You Are Here, Poetry in the Natural World. And we're down to our last few. So as a reward for getting here early on time, if you come by our booth, if you give us your name and email, we'll give you one of those anthologies. They're actually written by poets from all over the country, Latino, African American, Asian American, Anglo poets. Some are based here in Houston. That's our contribution to the movement. Additionally, we're going to make sure that we continue that dedication and let the community know that this is going on. Really a pleasure to join you all. If you want to follow up, you can go to nuestrapalabra.org, and looking forward to a great conference. Appreciate all of you changing the world. Gracias.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I am Lisbeth Atencio. I am the founder of Monday Paper. Monday Paper is a sustainable notebook brand. All the notebooks are made from sugarcane paper and soy ink, and also all the production is made in Venezuela, which is my home country. So it's a way to give back to my community, my people, so it's not only the environmental impact, but also the social impact. Please feel free to stop by my booth, and also 1% of the sales is going back to the Houston Energy and Climate Week. Thank you.
Houston is resilience. A city that has faced disaster and tragedy, yet always rises. This is the power of "and." Hydrocarbons and new technologies. Geothermal, CCUS, hydrogen. Together fueling tomorrow. We are energy and climate, industry and agriculture, local roots and global reach. In Houston, we don't choose either or. We thrive in the power of "and." Houston is unstoppable. This is Houston Energy and Climate Week. Unstoppable.
Thank you. So, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ingrid. I had to look back and check. It's been a long week. My name is Ingrid Velasco, co-chair of Houston Energy and Climate Week, and I'd like to bring on to the stage my other co-chair, John Rowe. If you want to say a few words, John. I know it's been a really amazing journey getting to where we are today. It's been months of planning. I wrote down the number 44 steering committee leads putting on the anchor events that we had over the week, and that does not even touch the surface of the number of people that were involved all week long. So I'm really excited to just share a little bit of the information through the panelists that we have organized for this morning, and I'll kick it over to John to just say a few words before we get started.
Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for participating throughout the week. I thought we would open it up. You know, I always like to bring the audience into these discussions. We've all been attending events, and I thought if one or two just had something to share about what they learned this week, that would be fantastic. Anyone want to volunteer something that they learned?
John, I think I know.
Okay.
Oh, we got two.
All right.
So one of the things that I was really very, very excited about was the brain economy, and David Gao spoke about that. And it just seems so perfect for Houston because we are the most diverse city in the United States of America, I think probably the world, to usher in this concept when you have so many different perspectives and so many different ideas in this just incredible kaleidoscope to solve these big problems. So I'm excited to not only own the moniker of the heart, the place that heals the hearts of the world, but also the place that encourages and expands the minds of the world, especially as it pertains to energy and climate.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
that was beautiful.
Great. Anybody else?
So yesterday we had the Maritime Offshore and Energy Innovation Summit, and I was just blown away from all the ideas, from the concepts that we hear there. But what stands out to me is collaboration. We all need to collaborate, so that's an end of Houston Climate Week. Also, we need to be very mindful of where we put the money to do the different things. In this case, the conversation was about maritime and decarbonization, and we need to be very thoughtful about that. Also, there's a lot of technologies coming on that can be adopted and that we are not aware of. And
I love it.
I love it.
And I have one other person that I know is going to have something to contribute. I'd like to bring her to the stage, Katie Menert.
Morning. It's so good to see everybody, and thank you to everyone online. And I hope if you're online, you're also sharing what you've learned. I want to also thank our local TV stations. As I understand, we may be live streaming. So thank you to the local public media for getting the messages out. It's been a really amazing week. I think the coolest thing to see is that we're not just embracing energy and climate within our industry, but we are seeing that across our beautiful region. So as I understand, the Green ICU conference was a big success in the medical center. Space Center Houston has gotten involved. We have a beautiful artist who's going to be here today to perform live. So look, it's all about getting people engaged. And people ask me all the time, you know, how can we be a part? So you can obviously volunteer. We'd love for you to give to the nonprofit. We will be boosting this next year. We won't go 2 weeks, promise. But we'll definitely have more resources to put this on. We want to thank University of Houston. We want to thank Rice University. We want to thank partners across the region, the ION, Post, all of the locations across the region that have hosted events here in our city. I'm also really excited. We are getting on a plane Sunday and we're going to New York Climate Week to be able to have a seat at that table, to have a conversation about the and is so, so vitally important. Not just obviously for Houston, but for our country. And if you were here on Monday when, or not here, wherever we were, down the way in the other auditorium, if you were here on Monday though, the message that you know we talked about was that Houston is going to be where America sorts itself out, and I really believe that. I believe the solutions are here. I believe that people that are here, the diversity, the richness of our city, our region, the leadership that we have, the infrastructure. The number one thing we need to do is get out of our own way. So I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about the collaborations that we're going to see coming forward. And next year, we will have one Climate Week.
Jump into our fireside chat. I am honored to be introducing the moderator for the fireside chat. She's a friend, she's a mentor, and I'd like to say give her a little bit of her background. So Jana is a strategic leader and community builder with more than 20 years of experience across sustainability, energy, and entrepreneurship. She's the founder of Practical Evolution, advising startups, small businesses, and nonprofits on operational excellence and investor readiness. Her career includes roles such as COO of Energistics Consortium and Director of Sustainability Programs at Syzygy Plasmonics. Jan also serves as a mentor for the Rice Alliance Clean Energy Accelerator and was one of the lead organizers for Houston Energy and Climate Week. Join me in welcoming Jana to the stage.
Thank you, Ingrid. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the last day of Energy Week. I'm going to be here. And I'm very happy to be sitting down with our keynote speaker, Dr. Daniel Cohan. I'm going to read a little bit about him, but I'll just say I met him earlier this year when I went to a Citizens Environmental Coalition book club where we were talking about his book, Confronting Climate Gridlock. I know a lot of his comments are going to be centered around this. But we'll be talking about a number of things, including his next book, so really looking forward to hearing more about that. Dr. Daniel Cohan is a professor of civil and environmental engineering at Rice University. His research and teaching focus on air pollution, climate change, and energy. He received a BA in applied mathematics from Harvard University, a PhD in atmospheric chemistry from Georgia Tech, and served as Fulbright Scholar to Australia. Dr. Cohan is a recipient of a National Science Foundation Career Award and served on the U.S. EPA Board of Scientific Counselors and the International Energy Agency's Electricity Security Advisory Board.
He is the author of over 50 peer-reviewed publications, over 70 popular media articles, and the book Confronting Climate Gridlock: How Diplomacy, Technology, and Policy Can Unlock a Clean Energy Future, which received second prize for the Rachel Carson Environmental Book Award. He's very impressive, but more than that, he's really interesting to talk to, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. So with that, join me in welcoming Dr. Daniel Cohen.
Thank you, Janet. Appreciate the introduction. Great to be here at University of Houston. So my talk today, have some brief remarks before most of our time will be in conversation, is just overviewing what are the key things that we need to do to confront climate change, which is really about what the energy transition going forward needs to look like. And I'll be tying in some of the lessons from this book, as well as work that I'm doing as I write my next book. This is the choice that we face. It's a different choice than we faced when I started teaching at Rice in 2006. Back then, most of the forecasts from the leading energy agencies, from the leading climate scientists, thought that we were on a trajectory of at least doubling our fossil fuel emissions, at least doubling our amount of coal use from where it is today, later this century, which was putting us on a trajectory of 3.5 to 4 degrees Celsius of warming. We've already warmed by about 1.4 Celsius so far, so really some catastrophic levels of warming. Instead, where we are now is this gridlock. We're starting to see emissions get close to a plateau. We have a lot of debate. Is it peaking in a couple of years? Is it going to peak in a decade? Exactly where it is, but we're not soaring to a doubling. We're not cutting the way we need to do to meet our Paris Agreement climates. We're in this muddle. We're in this gridlock where emissions are roughly flat or plateauing. And if we were serious about getting to a future with less than 2 degrees of warming by 2100, we would need to be on that lower green curve. We would need to be at a point where we're cutting emissions by half within a decade or so and heading towards net zero later this century, which is embedded in Article 4 of the Paris Agreement. The world's committed to doing so. All but one country in the world are still a part of the Paris Agreement. So to build that future, what I laid out in the book was pillars of decarbonization. And there are some things that are important to do. Yes, we need to keep doing what the Montreal Protocol started us doing with cleaning up other greenhouse gases, the CFCs, the halocarbons, as well as methane and nitrous oxide. Yes, we will need some carbon sinks to pull out the emissions, but carbon sinks will never be able to overcome the 37 billion tons per year of CO2 that we're putting in the air from fossil fuels and cement today. The only way that we can really address this problem is to deal with the 90% of emissions that come from our burning of fossil fuels. And to do so, that means transitioning to a clean energy future, which has to rely on 3 central pillars: efficiency, clean electricity, and then using that clean electricity to electrify what we can and to make clean fuels for what we can't. How do those tie together? Well, the energy efficiency need is obvious. If we don't become more efficient, we're going to need twice as many, whatever your solution of choice is, twice as many geothermal walls, twice as many solar farms and wind farms, twice as many nuclear plants. Whatever we're doing to clean up, we're going to need far more land, far more mining, far more material. So efficiency makes everything easier. Without clean electricity, why am I driving that electric car? Why am I switching over to an electric heat pump if it's running off of coal electricity? So electrification actually does still make sense, even with fossil electricity, but it makes much more sense as we switch to cleaner electricity. What I think is not fully appreciated is the key things that are left for efficiency. Now that we already have more efficient appliances, more efficient lighting, more efficient TVs and other devices now, most of what's left to becoming more efficient actually comes through electrification, is from switching to the electric motors, the heat pumps, the induction stoves that are 2, 3, 4 times as efficient as the burning options that they replace. And then on the left, we have what we can do if we solve the central three, is that if we have so much clean electricity that is coming out of our ears, that we have more than we know what to do with to be able to replace the coal and the natural gas plants and the diesel generators, and we have clean electricity left over, then that can be used to split water to make green hydrogen. We can capture CO2 to combine with that hydrogen to make clean fuels. Great to do, great to develop those technologies now. Anything that we're using for that now, where we're still not using that to get our coal plants closed, is actually going to make emissions a bit worse. And I put a lot of question marks whether CO2 removal makes sense. Any CO2, any clean electricity, nuclear, solar, wind, geothermal, whatever it may be, that isn't going to replace the dirty electricity, if it's being used to power those carbon-sucking machines, is actually going to slow us down. But yeah, if we solve all the rest, maybe we'll have enough left over to consider some of those approaches. So what does a net zero future look like? US, until recently, had pledged to go net zero by 2050. European Union is sticking with net zero by 2050. China and India have said 2060 is when they want to go net zero. So what does a net zero future look like? It has those same pillars that I identified in the book. With efficiency, that's the remarkable green circles that you see at the top, is a world that's going to have a couple billion more people, that's going to have more wealth, that's going to have people have access to electricity around the world, that's going to have, not everyone have their own car, but a lot more people having cars, lots more things that we want. A healthier, wealthier world can exist with less primary energy use than today, because most of the energy use that we use today goes out the vents, out the heat, out the exhaust pipe, because internal combustion engines are 20% efficient, coal power plants are 30 or 32% efficient. We're wasting most of the energy that goes in. And so if we can become more efficient, that can be a game changer. We actually can have less energy going in and have a wealthier, more prosperous, more populated future. Electrification is going to be key to doing that, because the only way we can get more efficient is to electrify what we can. And so their vision is, instead of just having a quarter of the world's energy come from electricity, it would be a future that more than half of the world's energy is coming from electricity. And that would be preferably with as much clean electricity as possible. They target, in this example, a future with 91% renewables. That matches what the US and what the world are putting, what we add now. What's being added in the US, what's being added around the world, is more than 90% wind, solar, and batteries. So that's not what's legacy. It takes a while to replace things, but we're actually on that sort of path if we're able to take what's new and replace. And then having clean fuels that can be made from hydrogen, can be made from advanced biofuels, or so forth. I decided that while the tax credits are still there, and since I'll be speaking at Sunday about the personal experiences people are having, to try to put this into practice, see what it's like as I work on the next book that goes into a bit more personal aspects of how this works. So what does it actually mean? Well, instead of that huge compressor that I had by my house, instead of that gas furnace that I had in the attic, that's the heat pump that we installed right on the side of the house. Uses a third less electricity in the summer, means I don't use any natural gas in the winter, has an efficiency of anywhere from 300 to 500% in the winter, because it isn't just burning a fuel, it's pumping heat using very little electricity to do so. And it doesn't just save money and save energy. I'd never imagined my home would be so quiet. So my wife and I asked, is the air conditioner on? We can't hear anything. Sure enough, it's the variable adjusting approach. The induction cooktop, I have to learn how to adjust things. By the time my water is boiling, is often faster than I can go grab my teacup and my bag of tea. And then with so many people turning in their leases and getting that $7,500 leasing credit, go check out cars.com, see things that as a Honda and Ford driver I never thought I would buy that are now selling for half of their sticker price. What else can be electrified? The dark green shows what we've already electrified around the world. The light green shows what we should be electrifying, shows what is already cheaper to electrify than the things that it replaces. They have if you go on to Ember, they have a plot of what this looked like in 2020. It was a vastly different picture. There was hardly any light green because to switch to an electric car, to switch to a heat pump, to switch to induction cooking meant going to a lot more expensive items, meant going to really short range, meant going to inferior products. Now these products are cheaper, at least over the lifetime, sometimes right up front, and they're just better. They're quieter, they're better performing. So that's what we can electrify, and we can electrify it with clean electricity. I'm old enough that I'm actually off the charts of here. When I arrived at Rice, it was back off the left edge of this chart in 2006, and wind and solar, like geothermal and nuclear, were more expensive than the fossil fuel alternatives. Now wind and solar have become the cheapest forms of electricity in the history of humanity. They are cheaper than was thought possible just 5 or 10 years ago. And yes, we need to blend them together. Fortunately, wind and solar tend to happen at opposite times and tend to happen at opposite latitudes and tend to peak in different seasons. But batteries have fallen in cost cheaply enough that pair those three together, pair them with legacy nuclear and hydro plants and other things we have, and you have the cheapest ways of making the system if we go ahead and allow those to be built. How did those costs come down? It happened in this way, and this is the sort of take-home message slide that I used when I presented my book as a TEDx talk, 'cause I find so many of my students feel a bit of despair, feel a bit of doom, feel anxiety over what's coming, want to have the agency, and this shows we're not Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill. We're no longer in a case where we have to choose between affordability and energy, where we have to choose between the car we want to drive and the car that's right for the climate. We can have them both, because what happens with learning by doing is that the more we do these things, the more that costs come down. The trick is that it goes downhill, but it's a very bumpy, a very friction-filled hill. And so it takes all of us doing on the research side, on the R&D, on the tech development, making those technology pushes exist. I should have drawn 10 times as many people on the right side, because if you look at what happens that drives down these prices, look at Greg Nimit's book from University of Wisconsin on what made solar cheap, it's the demand pulls. It's getting these things bought, and I don't care your politics. If your politics wants a carbon tax, if your politics wants things voluntary, if your politics wants things to happen through regulations, however we do it, somehow we need to get those things deployed, and that's what makes the costs go down when we have modularizable technologies. If we were going to build the Hoover Dam again, it would not be on a cost curve like this. If we were going to build the interstate highway system again, it would not be on a cost curve like this. When Vogtle was built, a $10 turned $27 billion nuclear project in Georgia, it was not on a cost curve like this. But we have simple things that can be built again and again and again, and factories commoditize them, make it where you can only make a slim profit at it if you can do it better and cheaper than someone else. It goes on cost curves that finite fuels that construction projects never can. We see it for every form of renewable energy, and we see it in the results of what's happened with deployments. The best energy economists from the International Energy Agency, which I've had the pleasure to visit the past couple Septembers in Paris, they kept coming out with forecasts each year where they thought, as recently as 10 years ago, they thought that we would be installing, as a globe, 40 gigawatts per year. Turn to last year, we cranked out 593 gigawatts of solar installed around the world in 1 year alone. Yes, 2/3 of that was in China. Yes, we have a lot of catching up to do, so the rest of the world starts deploying those as well. I get the objection all the time. I never get concerned about the land we use for biofuels, the land we use for coal mines, the land we use for abandoned oil wells. I always get, can we afford to use land for solar? Can we afford not to? This is the amount of land that we use to grow mainly corn that gets us 10% of the fuel. When you get gasoline at a gas station, if you still haven't moved to an electric car, you're actually getting E10, 10% ethanol, 90% gasoline. That 10% ethanol takes 25 million hectares of the US to grow. It's about 40% of our grain goes to making biofuels for a pitiful amount of our fuel. And that's not just land use, that's fertilizers, that's irrigation, that's pesticides, that's herbicides, that's things running off and making the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. If we were willing to take 8 of those squares and put solar panels on them, that would give us all of the electricity used in the US. Yes, we would blend it with wind, with batteries, with other power sources, but we could take the rest of it and make whatever, have biodiversity improve, have less fertilizer, et cetera. If you say, well, we don't just want the electricity today, we want to be able to have more things use electricity, to say go to electric cars, okay, fine, add 2 more of these squares, and that'll be enough electricity to do it. You want to think about it as wind, have some dots on there for the pads of where the wind turbines go. And what about the waste? Isn't this a terrible problem? We're flooding the world with solar photovoltaic waste. If we go out, like National Renewable Energy Lab has shown we can do, and build 1 to 2 to 3 terawatts a year, okay, so double or triple the amount of solar that we install today, which already have enough factories to do that, we would grow the amount of waste. If we are terrible and we don't do anything to recycle them, we would have this box to deal with compared to this box of far more toxic coal waste that we're already putting up with. So can we do it? Should we do it? It's something that we're on the right curve, that we can push this down to be a more affordable approach, and it will take building these pillars to do. And I look forward to a conversation about it.
Yes? Okay. All right, well, thank you so much for that. That was a great foundation for our conversation today, and I just wanted to start with an observation that was made by one of our speakers on Monday, Randy Lack from A New Climate. He said, we need to work now to achieve reductions in our environmental ambitions by 2050, but the challenge is we live in a microwave society. We want instant gratification, which I thought was so true, and it's only speeding up with social media and so on. So I guess I'll start with, how do we learn to take the long view in a microwave society?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think if we're thinking of the long view, the 2050 net zero target, that's, I think, was the right target that the country set until January, that most of the world has set, we need to realize that that's based on the decisions we're making today. Most of the homes that we build today are going to be around in 2050 and well beyond. The heavy-duty trucks, the buses that we're buying today are likely to be around well into the 2040s, are going to be part of it. So if we're serious about something that's a long-term goal of cutting emissions in half in the 2030s, that's serious about getting to net zero by 2050, it's already the choices, the things that we're purchasing today, the things that we can do today that get us there. And if you want instant gratification, you know, try how fast you can cook with that induction stove. The Wired magazine was complaining that everyday mass-marketed EVs are as fast as a Porsche 911. So if you want fast, if you want instant gratification, you can get it right now. Options that, you know, that cost no more than any other stove, that cost less than a typical F-150 or the most common cars that people are buying. So yeah, you can have that instant reward in ways that's getting us to where we need to be 1, 2, 3 decades from now.
Talk about first world problems, your car goes too fast. Don't know. Well, to that point, though, it takes more than, I think, the coalition of the willing in terms of the consumers. And you make the point in your book that the U.S. is pivotal to confronting climate gridlock globally. Now, your book came out in 2022, and the world is very different now from a political perspective. And we're seeing that play out in real time. You know, a wind farm that was 80% done up in, I think, off the coast of New Jersey was stopped in its tracks. Yeah. So how do you see the current political landscape, the polarization, the regulatory rollbacks, the state level innovation, combined with, you know, so you've got the people who are trying to shut things down, and then you've got so many amazing companies that are coming up with so many innovative solutions, and people who want to do the right thing. How do you see that affecting our ability to lead?
Great question. I think that's one of the areas in which my views have changed since I wrote this book because of the research and traveling that I'm doing for the next book. As writers, we write what we know, and what I knew from my first 15 years at Rice and from having always done my work in the United States, apart from that year in Australia, was the US context. And the book came out at a time when the Biden administration was getting started in a Democratic Congress, and it looked like there were a lot of pivotal things happening here. And if you look at where most of the pivotal technologies got developed, whether it was the solar panels developed out of Bell Labs, whether it was the batteries developed out of University of Texas at Austin, whether it was more advanced solar technologies developed out of Caltech, where the best energy national labs were around the world, where some of the best research universities were, it seemed like it was going to happen here. As things go on, I think the US is less pivotal than I realized. I realized that for the next book, it was crucial to be traveling through Europe, to be taking that 2-week trip down the eastern side of China, and realizing that what's driving that learning by doing curve, but I had hoped that my Rice students and other audiences I speak to would be pivotal in driving that curve. We need to be honest about the fact that that curve is not being driven by the United States. China's installing about as much solar in 6 months as the US has in its history, going about 10 times the pace of what we are here. That the nuclear industry is going 10 times faster in China than here, that European Union is going faster towards electric cars, that I don't know who can name the second country that went well beyond 50% electric car sales. Of course, Norway was the first, many of you probably followed. How many knew that Vietnam is the one that came second, just ahead of China doing that? Vietnam had virtually 0 electric car sales 7 years ago. They've got over 50% today, mostly homegrown. It doesn't have to just be Chinese. They've built up their own Vietnamese electric car industry. So I think what we're seeing is we're back at this time when the US is becoming more of an anomaly. We're the largest petrostate in history. We produce more oil, we export more natural gas than any other country has, and we're selling a product that isn't all that appealing. You see why our leadership has had to go to has had to go to Europe, has had to go to other countries, try to strong-arm countries into buying our products, because for each $1 of LNG that we sell, the same dollar spent on solar panels will generate in a single year as much as burning that LNG once will get, and those panels will be warranted to keep doing that much for 25 years. For each amount of gasoline that we want to sell abroad, that same amount can go far more distances with the electric cars. So, for a couple of years, can strong-arm diplomacy get some of these short-term fixes sold? Maybe, but I think long run, when 80% of the people of the world live in countries that are net importers of fossil fuels. And just like we were in the 1970s when we feared that other countries might have control over our energy security by having that ability to shut off our supply of fossil fuels, the 80% of the world that isn't oil and gas exporters, that wants to have energy security, that wants things cleaner, that wants a cooler climate, is going to be moving in very different directions than what the US is promoting right now.
Yeah, I think that's key, and it's interesting. I spent yesterday, but also the last 10 weeks working with a cohort for Rice Clean Energy Alliance, to the Clean Energy Accelerator, and it was amazing the plethora of solutions that really brilliant people are coming out with to deal with waste. So you had that slide indicating all the types of waste. Polycor using those plastic bags that we use for chips and everything else, and other plastics that really can't be recycled. Figuring out a way to make materials that can be used for construction. And so many other really innovative solutions, both for onshore and offshore gas and that sort of thing. And a lot of those companies have had to pivot and look to other markets outside of the US to scale as their first places to scale their companies, because the environment here just isn't where it needs to be, but we would really benefit from those solutions. So bringing it to Texas, Texas is a leader in renewables. I think we are the top producer of solar and wind energy in the country. Never quite sure exactly where we are with the grid, but it's somewhere between 27 and 32% of our grid is based on those renewables. Check, I could be wrong at this point, but that was the last I knew.
Goes up every month.
Yeah, it changes. But we're also a cautionary tale in grid vulnerability. And, you know, when you were talking about all the ways of electrification, I know my mind went to, yeah, but what about the grid? So how do you see electrification evolving in that context, that ability to support not only individual households going to renewables in cars, but also so much of heavy industry is coming up with solutions that involve electrification?
Yeah. We're a cautionary tale because Winter Storm Uri was the biggest blackout in US history, one of the biggest mass blackouts in the world. But how many of you got an emergency alert this summer when we were nearing peak demand that the Texas grid has ever had? You did? I didn't get one.
No.
How many of you had a blackout from the grid running out of power? Okay, when we were up at 80 gigawatts like the grid had never provided before. Since that time, we have tripled the amount of solar on the grid. I don't know, is it quadrupled or quintupled the amount of battery storage. A couple of friends in book club keep complaining that the Texas power grid has gotten so boring. They can't make a profit because there aren't the spikes going up to $2,000 and $3,000 and $4,000 a megawatt hour. Check out your ERCOT app. It can be 100 degrees and the power prices are $30 instead of $3,000. Okay, solar and wind and batteries are growing faster than all that demand you hear the headlines about. It's boring. I don't get called on TV and radio as much anymore because there's not a crisis. It's not so interesting when we're growing things enough. We're growing those supplies faster than demand is growing. And a cautionary tale from 2021, and ridiculous that we're not connected to the rest of the country's grid to be sharing our surplus wind and solar at times with other states and bringing in power in those occasional once every 10-year winter freeze emergencies. But when I go to Paris and talk to some of those other ISOs that are figuring out how to get more power more quickly onto their grid, they look to Texas. Texas doesn't make you go through a 3-year study to figure if your little solar farm or your little wind farm is going to crash the grid. We have connect and manage, where we say if you want to build it, go ahead and build it, and we'll figure out what transmission needs to be added later, and it gets things on the grid 2, 3, 5 times faster than PJM does in the Mid-Atlantic states, than is happening in California. So you have lots of people in blue and purple states coming to look at how red Texas has added solar faster than any state in history. Yeah, just past California with solar. We've always been long ahead in wind. And so I think as much as there are cautionary tales, as much as we should be having those interstate connections that we sorely lack, there's a lot to be learned from being in a state that just lets you build stuff, because a lot of the transition from a world that's 80% fossil fuels only can happen if we figure out how to build stuff rather than waiting for the perfect solution to come along.
Yeah, speaking of this summer, I read an interesting article on Space City Weather saying that this was the 6th warmest summer in Houston history since records have been kept.
I saw that, yeah.
And did you guys feel like that? Because I didn't.
It didn't feel that.
No.
I had been telling everybody, oh, we've had such a rainy and
Yeah.
and moderate summer by Houston standards. But yeah, where you see that climate change signal the most is that those greenhouse gases are trapping in Earth's heat 24 hours a day, even though our particle pollution is only reflecting away sunlight. So the biggest signal that we get is our nights aren't getting as cool as they used to. And so, yeah, that puts us into these weird weather statistics. Even if if our afternoons don't feel as hot as they were last year.
That's exactly what they said. It was that our evening temperatures never got below like 77, 78. And I looked because 2 years ago, which was the second hottest summer on record, I was training for the marathon along with Katie and other people. And let me tell you, it was brutal. So when I saw 77, I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go run.
One more fingerprint of greenhouse warming. If it was just the sun, if it was the sun getting hotter, it wouldn't be our nights getting hotter.
Exactly. So you've written about geothermal virtual power plants. You talked about some of the, I guess, personal technologies that we can take advantage of. What other technologies excite you most for grid reliability and decarbonization?
I mean, I love geothermal profile in the book. Tim Latimer, when it was just him and his collaborator trying to get their ideas started at Berkeley National Labs, and he very graciously got me set up for a day out there when he was in their cyclotron road program, and knew when he hired his third employee going on, whatever it is, 200 or 300 by now. Very exciting what they're doing out in Nevada and Utah. Yeah, a lot of innovations happening in various spaces. You know, it's the boring stuff taking us 90% of the way. The stuff that doesn't make the headlines, that's not any new technology, that's just plain old boring. Wind, solar batteries, better grid connections, more flexible demand so that we can make better use of variable sources. 90% of the story is there. And yeah, a lot of cool technologies that are going to get a lot more headlines, and I think have exciting ways that they can use some of the drilling technologies that were pioneered in Texas. A lot that needs to be done in the hydrogen and clean fuel space, where I think we haven't seen those cost curves come down like they should, but no reason that the electrolyzers and the other technologies for some of those green hydrogen and clean fuels can't hit those curves. They're just as modularizable as the others. So I think some opportunity, a lot of wild cards there, but while we're waiting for that tech development, we need to keep doing the boring work of deploy, the stuff that's already 10 times cheaper than we ever thought it would be.
Yeah, we had a session on Wednesday all around geothermal and how companies are leveraging technology that, you know, we have all the people here, all the technology here. We had a workforce event yesterday that talked about that, that we can leverage to advance all of the things that you talk about in your book, and so much more.
Yeah, we have a paper that should be coming out in a couple months where we were looking at some of those geothermal technologies and finding that some of the best applications might come in the industrial heat space, is that we have a lot of ways to make clean electricity these days. It's just pretty hard to compete with lithium-ion batteries as the backup for that very, very cheap wind and solar, but we don't have a lot of great ways to supply industrial heat. I think we forget how much of our emissions, how much of our gas and other fossil fuel use is going to provide heat to refineries and to chemical plants and to pulp and paper mills that need temperatures right at the temperatures that enhanced geothermal could provide. And so I think we need to be flexible in looking at what the energy needs are as a society and how maybe some of these emergency technologies can pivot into supplying what industries need.
I'll look forward to that. I know Annalise will be looking for that paper as well. She's involved with geothermal, women in geothermal and other things, so I expect to hear from her, I think. So taking a slight pivot, I think we're talking to kind of the coalition of the willing, but you know, we all know that we have people in our own families and that we work with who might not feel the same way about all of this that we do. And in this divided landscape, how do we talk about climate and energy in ways that invite and not alienate those who might be skeptical?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a skepticism about some aspects of atmospheric science or climate change, and I teach my atmospheric chemistry and climate course dutifully every year, and like to think that I'm making a difference by doing that, but often the solutions, the getting people to actually do the things that matter for energy, for saving money, for for climate don't necessarily go through a path of understanding every aspect of atmospheric chemistry and physics. Is that often, it at least used to be before things got so politicized, that 80, 90% of people, and even around 80% of Republicans, supported all the sorts of things we need to do to clean up, even before they became cheap, even before they became as good. And so I think there are aspects of explaining the science, explaining the problem we have, but for people who are just going to always tune out science, there's a very anti-science move these days. I think we just need to show this stuff is cool, this stuff is cheaper, this stuff is better. You know, come see how quiet my home and my car are these days. Come see how much more quickly I can make dinner these days. Come see how much better the products are. It's, if you test drove one of the first Nissan Leafs, one of the first Chevy Bolts or Volts, it wasn't that way 15 years ago. We're in a different world today where you really can have an affordable, better option and just happen to do what's right for the climate. And we can have those who would come to an event like this, the ambitious, the willing, have climate be a big motivator, but that doesn't have to be the only motivator, just now that the technology space has changed so much.
Well, and to that point, is there an argument to be made for talking not necessarily about climate change, but about values that we share, like we want clean air for our children to breathe and lower healthcare costs because we don't have as many cases of asthma, let's say, or cancer clusters, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
In your travels, have you seen that approach taken in other places where there might be, maybe there is or isn't disagreement about climate change, but maybe they also want to talk about other things that feel more tangible to people and more immediate to their lives?
Yeah, I look at the work that Rob Jackson has done, the Stanford professor who's actually a proud Rice alum, came back to speak to us earlier this year, has done a number of studies over at UT Austin's Pickles Research Campus, and is pointing out that most of the carbon monoxide, most of the nitrogen dioxide that we and our children are breathing in our homes, the vast majority of it is coming from burning natural gas in our homes. The natural gas furnace, the natural gas water heater, and mainly from the stove, since we spend so much of our time in the kitchen while we're cooking. And so, yeah, people who don't care about climate can say, you can point to the statistics of how asthma rates are tied to how much natural gas you're burning in your home. You can talk about the cleaner air quality. You can talk about the faster cooking that's possible now. You can talk about the quieter and more efficient heating and air conditioning systems. So that's something that you can communicate here. That's something that traveling through Europe, heat pumps are being adopted at a much faster rate. They already are doing a lot of district heating, so I think they find it strange the way that we're not being more efficient in the way we move heat through systems, much like Rice does on our campus. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of best practices that can be learned abroad, but a lot of research, a lot of things that are happening right here that can bring this into our homes, whether you care about climate change or not. I think we all want our kids to breathe clean air, to not get asthma, and that's the biggest step that we can take to make that happen.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it. We have a dynamic panel waiting in the wings, so I want to thank you very much for this conversation. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next. Thank you, everybody, and please join me in thanking.
Start our next panel. I'm really excited about this because I love systems thinking, and we have an expert that's going to be moderating a panel of 4 experts in their area that they will introduce themselves. But just to give you guys a little bit of background, and why we brought the systems thinking into the picture. So the energy transition is not a single shift, but it's a complex system of interconnected parts. So understanding those parts is going to be really important. Systems thinking helps us see those connections, anticipate ripple effects, and design solutions that work across the whole. So when we apply this mindset, we stop treating challenges in isolation, and instead we uncover synergies, build resilience, and create pathways where barriers once seemed immovable. That's what makes us unstoppable, our theme of this year, because we're no longer solving problems piece by piece, but we're transforming the system itself. I'm excited to introduce our moderator for the next panel. Her name is Julie Rush. She's an adjunct professor here at the University of Houston, and she led the Intersections of Climate and Energy panel on Monday. If you guys can help me welcome Julie to the stage.
Welcome. Just like Ingrid said this morning, we're bookending our week. I'm going to turn my chair so I can see the panel. We're bookending our week. So on Monday, we started with an intersections panel that had a unique crew of people who came from diverse backgrounds, like Ingrid mentioned. What I do for the University of Houston is in a graduate program that we have here, and it's called Foresight, which is Futures Anticipation. And so what we do is look at big systems and what are we going to do about those big systems? And so we look at social, technological, environmental, economic, political, and how all of those intertwine, and then the implications when you get all of that in together. So it's a really great program here. I also teach the same skills, systems thinking and futures thinking, to middle schoolers. And so it's basically the same program, we just de-escalate it down to teach the middle schoolers, so very fun. So today we have a great panel. I'm gonna bring them on, so come on out, panelists. Come on in. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Houston. Not all of our panelists are from Houston. And so welcome, we got a little bit of feedback. I'm wondering if it's coming from me. There we go. Not all of you are from Houston, and so welcome to the heat. We're still in summer. The autumn equinox is next week, but don't worry about it, it's still summer. So I'm gonna ask each one of you to introduce yourself, and then as we've done all week long, we give a little bit of not just what we do or what our resume says or what our LinkedIn account reads, but also why. Why are you passionate about these things? And so RB, why don't we start with you?
Sure thing. So thank you for having me. My name's Radha, or RB. Call me either. If you're gonna heckle, go with RB. I'm an expert partner at Think Beyond. Think Beyond is a sports business consultancy, and our entire purpose is to make sport more sustainable, more impactful, and as a result of that, more valuable. My why is I have seen and experienced sport be constructive, and I have seen and experienced sport be destructive. And I know that my team and our business is the best in the world at making sure it's constructive. And I have the opportunity to be part of that, so that is my why.
Perfect. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
Kath, how about you?
Hi, my name is Kath Conlon. I'm the founder and director of Blackwood Educational Land Institute, and we are a teaching farm. And 40 years ago, I was pregnant, and the burning thing that was in my mind and my heart right that moment was that this child has to be ecologically literate, because if they're not going to care about anything that we're here to talk about.
Perfect. We're glad that you're here. 40 years ago, got a kiddo. I just turned 40, so glad to know that you've been making these changes since then. So welcome, Kath. We're glad to have you. Kyla.
Hi, I'm Kyla. It's working, right? Okay. I carry two hats. So I'm a program director and curator, and I also am the youth coordinator for One Earth, One Chance, which is a nonprofit. So we plant trees in the DFW area and native shrubs, and I also independently curate art shows throughout Texas. For the why, I do it for a lot of different reasons, mostly because I love children. I love working with kids, and I think about the way I grew up, and I don't want that to go away. So that's my why. I think that's a very common value that we all have, so.
Yeah, future generations, for sure. All right, James.
Firstly, thank you for the invitation to be part of the panel. It's great to see everyone turning up for the closing event of Houston Energy and Climate Week. I work for a company called Noverum. We focus purely on water and water technology. Simon Sinek, the management consultant, focuses on why, and it's really what is your driving passion and what gets you out of bed every morning to do the things you do that you don't regret. You don't think it's a job, it's just part of the culture and who you are. Our why at Noverum is to ensure that everyone on the planet has access to clean drinking water. So we work with innovative technology companies around the world, US, Europe, Southeast Asia, to find those technologies and to commercialize those technologies to enhance access to water, the cleanliness of the water, and to ensure that future generations have access to not only something that keeps them sustainable, but helps them for economic prosperity as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you all for introducing yourselves and giving us a little bit extra. RB, why don't we start with you? I think a lot of folks probably wonder, why do we have someone who's involved in sport here? And it doesn't land quite as close as maybe water does, but maybe talk a little bit about where you sit at Think Beyond and how that impacts the conversation that we've been having this week.
So I think it's two words. It's impact and opportunity. So sport has an impact on the world. It's a $560 billion industry. It can completely destroy everything. But it is one of the biggest platforms in the world in order to drive change. And so I think about sport as having four key functions. The first one is an inherent function. It is inherently, in its movement, good for us physically and mentally. But it can also, like fire, be great or it can be destructive. The second function it has is that it can be manipulated. We can change the way we deliver sport to teach things. We can change the way we deliver sport to make it more inclusive. We can change the way we teach sport to teach about HIV awareness and AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa. And as a result of that, we can change behaviors. The third piece is that it is a $560 billion industry. So if it runs better, more sustainably, more humanely, we will see a genuine system shift. And finally and crucially, the platform of sport can drive change. And so there was a study done by MIT. I'm going to get probably the numbers and the dates not entirely right, but the essence is 50 years ago, the people were influenced most by politicians, about 20%, sport was about 5 or 6. When it was redone in 2020, so that's not great maths either, sports people were 50%, and politicians were 5 or 6. And so in harnessing that, how do we truly, truly drive change? And so our job at Think Beyond is to make sport in and of itself more sustainable and impactful and make that business as usual, the license to operate, the reasons fans are going to show up, the entertainment that we can show, and that's everything from grassroots all the way to the top. It's how do we then bring brands into the picture, those that partner with sport. They can't just partner with sport now and do nothing about it. And equally, they don't want to work with a sports entity that isn't doing the right thing. And so how do we bring those two things together to, for example, with Rexona, part of the Unilever group, they want to make 10 million young people more active. And why do they want to do that? Because they know not everyone has access to movement and not everyone can drive confidence from movement. And so our job is to really, really help make that happen. And then finally, on the partnership side of things, how do we drive more revenue into sport so it's business as usual? So that's the opportunity of sport, but equally, the impact of the environment on sport could destroy sport forever. You know, it's too hot to compete. We've seen it in all of the major tournaments in the world. It's too rainy to compete. It's too whatever to compete. Fans can't come and be safe. But for me, the most important issue is that young people can't participate and gain the benefits from sport and physical activity in any movement because the air quality is too poor. And with that, in urban environments, that's even worse because we don't have the tree cover, we don't have the clean air. And as a result of that, those people, mostly from lower socioeconomic groups, mostly from communities of colour, don't have access to the healthcare they need. And so there is a system of injustice that sport can either add to, because it's moving people in spaces where they're not going to feel well, or we can make it better because we have the platform to do so.
I think that's great. I mentioned that I teach at a middle school, and part of the projects that they do is they will usually do the future of a sport, and so inevitably the NBA or soccer, football, and they often find some of the similar results that you just spoke to. And so at the end of the semester, they have to artifact something, like how will you solve some of these problems? They're making gel-lined softball uniforms, or they're talking about 3D printing basketballs, or dissolvable uniforms, things like that, trying to find some answers to some of these questions. And so it's really interesting as we speak about future generations, like many of our panelists did, of getting these kids in action. They're so smart. Sometimes they get these connections quicker than we do, and so I love you speaking about that. So speaking of education, Kath, can you tell us a little bit more about the projects that you've been working on and the impact in this space as well?
Sure. Everything that Ra just said is like top of my brain every day, top of my heart every day. And you cannot do, if you do what we're doing, which is regenerative agriculture and providing food, they're going to be the absolute best athletes. They're going to be the Olympians of the world. And we want to help all of these people, I don't care what color, what age, whatever they are. We want them to help them be the best Olympian that they can. And it's going to happen through their food. And that's going to happen through agriculture practices. And that comes from taking care of the soil. So we like to think of ourselves as soil farmers before we are anything else. Because if the nutrition is not in the soil, it's not going to be in the food, and you're not going to be at your best to run, to jump, to think, to be as smart as we all need to be.
Perfect. Yeah. The food nexus, energy, air, water, all of this space, I think, is overwhelming. And at the end of a long week, for many of us, this can feel like more losses than wins. And so staying with the sport analogy, James, might you tell us a little bit about where you live in the water space and how you really feel successful or like you're getting wins in this space?
Sure, so it goes back to the why. So, the why is trying to find technology solutions to enhance access to water or enhance the cleanliness or removing contamination from water. So we work with global organizations to find those technologies. So we have relationships and alliances in Europe, Southeast Asia, and also North America. The win, it's interesting. So we hosted an event on Tuesday at Rice University. 120 people turned up right across the water spectrum. So environmentalists, engineers, research people, venture capital, private equity, to talk about water, because there's no silver bullet to water. There's no one solution that will solve it. You have to come together and put certain aspects of technology together, which means you have to collaborate, right? So a win, going back to the success, is where you actually start connecting those organizations or technology partners together, and the light bulb moment goes on. One of those light bulb moments on Tuesday, we had energy and oil and gas people talking about water. There's 8 to 10 barrels of water produced for every barrel of oil. We certainly need oil and we need energy, so that's not going away. And the person got up there and said, we are a water company that produces oil. So essentially, the light bulb moment in the audience went on. It's like, oh, we're not solving an energy problem, we're solving a water problem. And then after that, they got together, and that was good. I mean, to me, that's a form of success, is bringing together people across industry to solve a big issue.
Yeah, that's great. In our Foresight program at U of H, we talk about levels of intervention. And the first level of intervention is usually like data and numbers. Like you give people data, statistics. Like sometimes that will shift someone's perspective or their mind when they have some data, some numbers. But as you move down the line, looking at the power dynamics in a system or the goals of a system, and then eventually the biggest is a paradigm shift. And so James, I think you're talking about those types of things of like, okay, what are the real goals that we're talking about here? What's the mindset we're speaking of? And then eventually, like, can you get people to have a paradigm shift? And I say to my students all the time, you can have a paradigm shift right now. Right? You don't need a ton of things to get you to understand something differently. And that's part of why we do these intersections, is because that's part of how we do that, is making these systems clear. So Kyla, can you speak a little bit about when you're doing your work, how do you get people to get that vision? How do you bring them on board? What really inspires that vision?
I think it comes from a lot of different things. when it comes to arts and curation, I'm trying to get the audience to understand each of these artists' perspectives, which by itself is difficult when you don't have an audience that understands art. And I think I see that similar connection when it comes to climate work. You're talking to people who might not understand the full story. So you have to explain it to them and show it to them either visually or through an event locally, or get them to talk to other people in the industry or other local people. So I think when it comes to these kind of conversations, it takes creativity on each aspect, and it depends on what kind of crowd you're trying to communicate to. The show that's coming up right now, I'm working with the Dallas Museum of Asian Texans. So we have a lot of people that are obviously in the Asian diaspora, for example, but we also have people that are celebrating and coming to these shows who are definitely not part of that same diaspora. Yet they connect with these kind of things because we're telling them our stories from the local community, and they are part of that community. So when it comes to sustainability work, we try to recreate that aspect, and I think that's how you bridge people, bridge connections, like he said, and gather people from different industries to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah, that's great. RB, I am not an athlete, not even a little bit of an athlete. I spend most of my space behind books and researching, but coming from a sport background, what are the ways that maybe our audience can even take away from the team mindset of how do you work well? What are some key points of doing teaming well together?
Sure. Honestly, I think it's the same as you would do in business. It's a shared goal. It's a shared value. You know, in sport and impact, there is a phrase that sustainability is a team game, and that's used quite regularly. But also, I'm completely with James. There is no silver bullet. And when we consistently seek an absolute, we always fail. When we're at one end of the spectrum or the other, we will always fail. And so sport is part of a supply chain. And so it has to work in partnership with other things in order to make change. But the other thing that we get from sport is hope. You know, that number one inherent value of sport that I talked about, the physical and mental, part of that is also emotional. Sport moves us in a way, and people care about it in a way. They feel something. And this isn't everyone, but a large percentage do. And with that moment of feeling, we can create change. And I'll give you an example and why I think it's hopeful. One of our clients, and I never go on a panel or speak on anything without speaking about the greatest soccer club in the world, which is the Liverpool Football Club. Thank you very much. You can stay. I have the very great privilege of calling Liverpool Football Club not only part of my heart, but a client. And they are, and I can say this because I don't work on that client, they are, their insides match their outsides. You know, they are doing their very best to run sustainably. They are verified externally. They were the first football club to be ISO 2012-1 certified, the first to be ISO 4001 certified. And therefore we know they're walking the walk, and they also know they're not perfect. And then they have one of the greatest teams in the world, objectively, not just because I'm saying it, because we're winning. And they have a huge number of stars. And then they have some of the biggest partners in the world. SC Johnson is one of them. And if you look up the World Earth Day content from 2024 that Liverpool did with SC Johnson, it's hilarious. It is a team talk, and it's about the environment and sustainability. And it outperformed every other piece of partner content by 4x. And what that means is it outperformed every bit of content that had nothing to do with the environment, that was the content that people are used to seeing. And so the ability for us to speak to billions using these two things to give hope, and for it not to be earnest, for it to be seriously hilarious, that's one of the things that we can learn, that we can connect emotionally, it can be fun, and we can drive change.
Yeah, lead with humor, lead with hope, lead with positivity. Yeah, I think that's a great way to pivot that. So Kath, part of the design and logos for this week was actually using the and symbol, the ampersand. And so talk a little bit about when you are doing your work, what is the and? Like you're always looking to collaborate with, or you're looking to bring someone in. Can you tell us a little bit about your and?
Yes, we have a 33-acre farm, and then we also have that 1-acre farm on the roof of Post Houston. So our and is how do we bring, and we do a good job of bringing architects, bringing engineers, bringing students from Rice, from the University of Houston, from all over the country. So it's looking for those partnerships and realizing, for me, in the end, is she's talking about humor, and the other part of it is that food is our best medicine. And if we take care of our soil and we're growing the best food possible, we will be the healthiest again, the healthiest Olympians possible.
Yeah. It's really hard with a panel sometimes because everyone is like so passionate about what they do and the places they sit. And so making sure, I think it's beautiful how you all have done that for each other. Like it's food, but it's also sport, and it's sport, but it's also food. And so James, from the water perspective, what do you think like this connection and progress for you? What's a big and that you see?
Look, just listening to the other panelists, I think one which which is a common thematic between the four of us, is around storytelling. So whether it's sports, regenerative agriculture, or art, or water, you really need to distill what you're doing and the impact that you're bringing to a very simple level to target the audience and target the heartstring and the wallet at the same time to get things done. So water is a really, and I'm not an engineer, my background's consulting and banking, water is a very, very complex topic.
Yeah.
And the conversations that I have, you need to distill it down to a very easy story. So an example I would like to share with everyone is we just finished a project in South Africa, in Johannesburg, where we implemented a solution within the utility. It was an AI data-driven solution to reduce water leakage. So we saved 150 million litres, divide that by 4 and you'll get gallons, whatever that is, 35 million gallons, within one small zone, and we're scaling that to 2 billion litres of savings of water. Microsoft paid for that. So we went to Microsoft and we told them about the city of Johannesburg. They lose 50% of the water after it's treated. Large areas of the city is underprivileged or underserved. They have big issues, and the schools, educational facilities, medical facilities are all suffering because of the access to water. So we just distilled a very simple message to Microsoft around how they could make a demonstrable impact within that community, connected them with the utility, and we implement the program. Now, if you think about that, that's a complicated program. One of the largest data center providers or technology companies in the world, who are based in New York, talking to a utility in South Africa about a water solution. So I think it's really important, whether it's the focuses that the panelists have here, or anyone in the audience focused on climate or energy or resiliency, whatever we're doing, we need to distill it down to a really simple story. And that's the end.
Yeah. Part of the work that I do outside of just working for the university and working with middle school students is that I also serve the city of Houston here as a death doula. And a death doula is someone who really steps in when someone is actually physically dying. But lots of what I do when I talk to people about the future is the death of ideas, the death of hopes, the death of some of the things we thought were going to happen or should happen. And so there's some grief involved in all of that. And I think often in the future space, in the foresight space, we talk about wicked problems or really complex problems, and complexity and chaos feel like they are just warping, like warp speeding, right? And so we feel overwhelmed, and we feel stuck, and we feel that paralysis of, fight, flight, freeze. We just kind of lock down and freeze, or we just start making kind of chaotic decisions. And so I think, speaking of some of this, James, when you're saying like being creative in our thinking and also looking for solutions. In our first panel, if you were with us on Monday, we talked about sometimes the implications of really great decisions is actually something negative, and we've got to clean that up. We thought we had a great idea, and Debelina was our panelist and talked about, well, when we started using corn in such a way, we actually had some really negative implications for water supply. And so what did that mean, and how did we clean that up and move forward? And so part of the and, I think, is not not just how do we solve, but how do we clean up sometimes our solutions, right? They become part of the problem. From this week, James shared a little tidbit of a takeaway from this week. But even if you didn't get to attend everything, even if you just found yourself in one or two conversations, as panelists, might you share some insight that you'll take away from this moment in time? Whether it was all week long or if it's just chatting in the green room with your fellow panelists. RB, maybe we can start with you, just a little bit of insight.
That you just have to start. There are more people doing this than we realize, and that paralysis of not starting is equally something I see in sport a lot, because yes, it's a team game, and sustainability is a team game, but every sports property body at grassroots all the way through to elite wants to be the best, and therefore they don't want to fail, and therefore they don't want to start, and therefore they don't want to talk about it. And so our job is always telling people to just start. I'm working with NASCAR at the moment. That's a pretty terrifying proposition for them. You know, they are a fossil fuel sport that is broadly seen as fairly right-wing, and that's a big challenge, and they are wholeheartedly part of it. And my job for them is to say, let's be really honest with the fact that we are starting. We are not here. This is where we want to go. And so just start, be okay to fail, and know that failure is the price of progress.
Great. Kath, what about you? A little insider nugget that you'll take away from being part of Energy and Climate Week here.
There are crazy things going on in the country right now, and there are things that we cannot control. But what we can control is what's in our own backyard and within our 6-foot circle here. And I just think that, as Rob was saying, you have to start at home and in your own backyard, in your own city, in your own state, because that's where you can make a difference.
Yeah. Don't let the overwhelm get to you, right?
And don't be paralyzed.
Right, yeah, just get in action. Okay. Kyla, what about you? What's a little insight that you might take away?
I think a lot of creative solutions come from talking with people you would never be in a room with. So, like, for example, I'm sure we would probably meet again at another conference or something, but it takes a lot to put these kind of people in one room. So I'd say the best solutions come from communication with someone you would just never really talk to. And I think because I've been in so many rooms like that, I've found more solutions, and I've learned so much more than I would have ever learned in school. So I think that's my takeaway.
Yeah, thank you, Kyla. James.
I'm actually in alignment with you. So I think failing is fine. Not doing something is not fine. So fail fast and fail forward, but give it a go. The solutions are out there. A lot of the discussions I went to this week, it's all about innovation. Most of the solutions that we have now will solve the problem. It's how do you adopt it, and how do you accelerate it, and how do you scale it. So it's about just doing it, and it's fine. If you're going to fail, you fail. You gave it a go, but you're going to find the right partners along the way where you might have a success. So I'm 100% with you. If you stand still, nothing happens.
Is it a good Nike sports reference there as well? Just do it. Just do it. I like it.
Just do it. Just do it. There you go.
Get in action, right?
That's it.
I think we were able to grab a mic for the audience, yeah. And so we have really 4 unique panelists here that represent different sectors, but also different worldviews, different life experience. And so if anybody in the audience had a question that they wanted to reach out, we've got a mic available. And so any questions for the panel or just about this week? Folks are always really shy. Yeah.
I can certainly start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Predictions for the Merseyside derby tomorrow? 3-0 Liverpool?
I mean, I'm going to go 4-0 with all 4 goals in the last 3 minutes of added time, not even extra time. There you go.
Right. On a more serious note, what's the one thing that you think we can do today to walk out this room with?
Go and tell someone else what you heard. Go and tell someone else something you found useful. Do the one thing that you've been stuck with, you know. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. You've done it.
Yeah. Yeah. even sharing perspective or sharing with other people, like Kyla said, you know, just getting in conversation. Yeah, Kath.
Yes. Oh, I just think take somebody some really, really good food that
Nice.
needs it. Yes.
I'd say do something that you probably would never do, or volunteer for an organization that you wouldn't expect to be into climate or sustainability. You know, most people don't think about sports and sustainability, but there's tons of people working at it. So try to do something that you would just never expect would also incorporate climate work.
I think if you're passionate about something and you want to get into that sector and don't know how, go talk to an NGO. So NGOs, they know the sector back to front, they're resource constrained, they're capital constrained, they're open to have conversations with you. So if you're willing and passionate, it's probably a great place to start.
Nice. Yeah. Our opening panel, we had a startup, a representative from a startup, and then fellowship program that was helping with commercialization and startups, and another really great panel. So if you didn't get to attend on Monday, some great folks to connect with there as well, and really spoke to the space of, you know, there are some of us that are beating doors down to get this in action, and some of you are sitting in the audience and have access to this, and you may not be aware of it. And so that's a really great call out. Let's chat with them as well. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, I want to thank you all for being here, and I think it's great that 2 out of 4 are British, so this is definitely an international panel. By the way, I am trilingual.
My relatives were put on a boat and sent to Australia. But
Indeed, okay, so, okay, well, I'm trilingual. I speak British English, Australian English, I live in Australia and England, and American English, so I am trilingual, y'all. And yeah, so I wanted to say that my new favorite quote from Gandhi is, "An ounce of practice is worth tons of preaching." And I love that you all are offering practical solutions. So could you all, as this is a combination of environmental and health and physical health that you're talking about, could each one of you offer perhaps one practice that we can implement today?
Sure. I'm going to piggyback on the speak to NGOs. One practice is, if you're looking for a solution, speak to the people that are experiencing the problem, because they know, and our job is to empower them. I don't make change happen in sub-Saharan Africa. They do. My job is to enable it and sit in between the person that's paying for it and the person that's doing it. So yeah, that's mine.
Kath?
Yes. I talk to so many adults, and many of them say, I do not want to be a teacher. I just think we all have to take into our hearts and know that we are all teachers. Everybody watches us every day. Little kids, little tiny kids, they watch how you eat. They watch how you treat your neighbors. They watch everything that you do. And I just think that we have to be aware of the real power that every one of us has, because the world is watching.
Great. Kyla?
This is going to sound stereotypical, but start at home. I'd say when I was younger, I had no knowledge of composting. This is a very basic, once you learn it, it gets easier, you know? So when I started working with One Earth, One Chance, they have a Green Ambassador program, and it's basically an education program run by UTD professors. They created the curriculum. And even though I know how to plant a tree, I'm not the best at composting. And I started learning how to do it through the program. And I taught my mom, I taught my cousins, and now multiple people in my family compost. And that was not done before. And it was very simple and at home. But it also exposes you to little behavioral things, and you're able to teach that alongside to your community, like Kat said. So I think that's the most basic thing you can do as of right now. And I think taking care of your mental health at the same time is very important. So everyone that works in climate, in any kind of organization, whether it's an NGO or it's a corporation, you got to take care of your mental health if you want to keep communicating and doing the best you can when you're doing this kind of work. So.
I was trying to think about the best example, and one that really sticks with me was a mentor I had at a university. He had this 3-2-1 philosophy. So He said you can always remember 3 things when you talk to someone or go to an event, so always have 3 takeaways. You can always meet 2 people, one on the left and one on the right, and then when you leave, you can always do 1 thing. And it's interesting, you know, that was 25 years ago as a mentor, and that stuck with me over my whole career, like how to just be actionable. You can read as many books as you want, but you got to get out there and do it.
Yeah, that's good. From the death doula perspective, where I said I think some of it is recognizing that some things have to end so something can begin. And we often don't want to grieve. We don't want to feel negative feelings. Like speaking of mental health, we don't want to let go of our perspective. We want to hold on to our rightness. You know, I tell my students, you can be right or you can have a good life. And they often want to dig in, and it's water, it's food, it's physical activity, you know, it's this, and it's often not just this, right? It's all of those things, and leaning into complexity, I think, for sure. Do we have one more question? Yeah.
So we're a literary organization, and we thought we'd be a fish out of water exhibiting here, but we've seen so many cool people and discovered so much common ground. I'd like to find out if maybe a panelist has uncovered or stumbled upon a cool asymmetric collaboration, either here or recently, that they could share.
Yeah, I love those like serendipitous moments of like you were in the room at the right time to discover something really amazing. Any unique experiences or sharing?
So when we're in the green room chatting, we're talking about sport and grassroots influence. So, you know, we're certainly going to catch up after this event. So in the sector, you know, you're talking about why is water and sport, why should they go hand in hand? And it's really that grassroots influence. So I don't know whether everyone knows Mr. Beast. You know, I mean, he's one of the greatest influencers. He just ran a campaign this month with WaterAid, and he came out and said, I want to raise $40 million in a month to provide, and for every $1, it's a year of drinking water for a child. So he raised $40 million in a month, and he basically went and got all his influencers together to do it. Now, what's the knock-on effect of that? I'm talking to middle schools and, you know, my children's friends. They're fanatical around water now. I mean, this guy has just changed, you know, the thinking and opened the awareness. So I think it starts at grassroots, whether you're doing football, regenerative, or water, or whatever it is. You know, think about how you can influence at the bottom and on the way up. But to your point, we're going to talk about, you know, collaboration as well.
Definitely. I'll give you an example of, maybe it's not an asymmetrical collaboration, but it's a complete shift in approach. There's an amazing organization in Thailand called Manta Sailing, and it has retrained fishermen to teach sailing to tourists, so they stop overfishing the waters, but they can still make a living. And there are examples of that all over the world, and I think that those little shifts make big differences. And there's, what I would also add is there is a huge intersection with sports and literature, and ways that it has been used, both to teach in many different ways, but also to change audiences. And I'm going to come and speak to you about it.
Great. Kyler or Kath, anything to add?
I mean, I see it a lot when it comes to curation. When you have so many different kinds of artists, you also have very different kinds of people. And some artists write, it's literature, like how you probably are doing as well. But seeing those kind of collaborations and being able to talk between different artists, I think is its own unique form of storytelling. And whenever I was curating different shows, this one artist, he does like very clear Urdu scripture. It's just beautiful, and it takes a long time to do. And he was talking to his photographer, and I actually mentioned the photographer earlier. He takes pictures of different cricket stadiums and the players along cricket stadiums. And he was just comparing low-income areas with stadiums over time, with very high-end stadiums that happen here. And he was talking to the Urdu writer, and they were just talking all kinds of stuff about culture and arts and everything, but it led to a conversation where they wanted to collaborate for a piece. And I think that's a small scale idea of what I think you're trying to describe, but I've seen it extend into bigger things. And I think when it comes to those kind of creative exchanges, that's its own kind of collaboration. I think it leads to really cool solutions. So,
Awesome. Kath, anything you want to add?
You know, again, a long time ago, when we were asked as leaders to talk about solutions and the choices that we had to choose from were environmental issues, social justice, health, and spirit. And I could hear people saying, but those are so different, how can I choose? And we don't want to choose, because if you pull any one piece of that out of a human being, they're not as whole and as full as they could possibly be. So that demands collaboration. We cannot, as James is saying, there's not a silver bullet. I mean, it takes all of us to do this. There are many times when people say, tell me one thing that I can do every day of my life that will solve or that will help make a difference. And there's not one thing. It's a lot of things that we all have to do.
Yeah. So we are out of time, but if I could do what I do in my classes is everybody take a deep breath, because this can feel overwhelming. It can feel like there is a lot to get in action about, and even that one first step can sometimes feel paralyzing. When you leave today, there is a poster out front and outside of the theater where you can post your own takeaways, your own insights, your own serendipitous moments that you may have had this week that was surprising, because we want to capture that to take into next year and make sure we're having more of those. So if you get a chance, just grab a sticky note and post it on, and I hope that you'll join me in thanking our panelists for being here. We have a few more exciting things for you today, including, I believe, some music that might be coming. And so I'll invite our next group to come on up. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
In Houston, we came together across industries, across ideas, across the world. Across these days, we shared vision and action, energy and climate, innovation and resilience. This is the power of AND, where breakthroughs are sparked and connections last beyond the week. Together, we proved what unstoppable looks like, today and tomorrow. This is Houston Energy and Climate Week. This is the power of AND. Until we meet again.
Awesome. What did you guys think about that panel? Right? I already saw the connections happening there amongst themselves. They just met each other 40 minutes ago. Yes, we did a Zoom call, but I see the connection there, and I've seen that throughout the entire week. To me, it's just very rewarding when I meet somebody and they're like, yeah, I went to this session, and now I'm connected with somebody else. We're going to go have coffee and continue the conversation. And that's what I hope that you guys all do at the end of today. But before we break, I do have a few of the exhibitors that want to come out and just introduce themselves and invite you to their table. So I'll have them come out now and do a quick intro.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ashwin Bandaram, the founder of Mission Zero. And as some of you have actually used our cups, that's the most carbon efficient way of actually consuming beverages at any events, or even like we're actually launching a takeout solutions as well. So our mission is to basically develop smart and scalable solutions for us to consume food and beverage, most carbon efficient, climate efficient way. And we are also actually working with several partners. And if you want to work with us and making your events or your company implement most climate efficient solutions to have food and beverage solutions, talk to us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jess Larinaga. And I am with the Arctic Defense Campaign. I just graduated from Vanderbilt this past May, and I moved here to Houston to work on the Arctic Defense Campaign. What we're trying to do is protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge from proposed drilling. which would have really detrimental impacts on all the wildlife that lives there, as well as the indigenous groups who call the Arctic Refuge home. Regardless of your stance on drilling, I think we can all agree that the Arctic Refuge is a place that should be protected. It's one of the last untouched public lands in the United States, in the northernmost part of Alaska, and it's just such a special place. So if you're interested in learning more about getting involved with the campaign or just in signing our petition to protect the refuge, come to our booth outside. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Pankaj. I am the Managing Director of the Climate Services team at Carbon Better. Carbon Better, we are a boutique, Texas-based sustainability and decarbonization-focused advisory firm. We help companies, large and small, get on the path to sustainability, and we help them across the value chain from sustainability strategy to GHG accounting, decarbonization roadmap development, and for relevant organizations, helping them purchase high-quality carbon offsets and renewable energy credits. We are the official carbon accounting partner of Houston Energy and Climate Week, so we will be estimating the footprint of this week across all the events which have occurred and across all the venues which have occurred, so that we can begin the journey to understand the footprint we are creating, and then we can work on it to reduce it over time. We do have a booth outside, so if you want to talk about any of these topics or just sustainability in general, come find me. For folks who are online, you can also catch me on LinkedIn and shoot me a note. Thank you.
All right, and with that, I'll release you guys for your break. Go get some coffee, snacks, and visit our exhibitors.
Yeah? Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and jump into the next segment. I want to introduce our Hack of the Heat Hackathon leads to the stage. We have Katie Rosario, Marketing Manager of Octopus Energy, joining the stage. We have Elizabeth Horn, founder of Texas Nebula. And Rekha Patel, founder of Zerathis and the online platform that was used.
Awesome. My name's Katie. I lead marketing for Octopus Energy US, and I was really excited to be part of this hackathon. I feel like I'm a little echoey. I don't know if I can. Sorry. Is it that one? You told me to come out. Is this better? Yeah. Okay, cool. Didn't want to damage your eardrums. Anyways, we were really excited to put on this hack.
Somebody probably needs to move them from the food.
Sorry. Good? Okay. We were really excited to put on this hackathon. The theme of it was Beat the Heat, Demand Response. And at Octopus Energy, we're a retail energy provider, and we're fighting the good fight with demand response, bettering the grid, all for a cleaner, greener planet. And this was a really exciting problem to have the students tackle, as it's one that we talk about in the energy space all of the time. And having the future of energy tackle something that we work on daily was a really exciting endeavor. They had amazing ideas, and it was just an honor to be part of this day and watch their minds work. But I'll hand it over to Elizabeth now to explain the rest.
So we are also very, very grateful to our sponsors at NRG, and we are hoping that we can really solve the Texas grid problem and all the incoming demand from the data centers. So I would like to hand our presentation over to Rekha Patel, who is the leader of Zerathis, who helped our platform that day.
Thank you. So thank you also to Octopus Energy and all the sponsors. We were happy to provide a project-centric innovation platform to the students to work in. We had a lot of students that got the data on Monday evening, and within a day they have done a wonderful, wonderful job. All teams did a wonderful job. Thank you, teams. So I'm actually going to call each team up here, and you guys can introduce yourselves at the mic there, just so everybody knows who participated. So this is in no particular order, guys, okay? Let's get EchoShift. Team EchoShift, anybody here? Yeah. So they did a fantastic job. What they did was within a day, they actually delivered an app. So they, in their presentation, they were able to provide their pitch, including, how they're going to look at the market, how they're going to, they didn't go into fundraising, Sandy, but they did go to the market, of course, and very good ideas, and they were able to demonstrate what they had developed as an app. I'll let you guys present your names, and yeah.
Hello, hi. So my name is Mohammed Ibrahim Sareem, and I'm a master's in cybersecurity. I'm currently working as a data scientist. We developed for the problem of that people are not aware about their consumption, at what time they should be doing, at what particular thing. They don't know about the peak hours of energy when the energy usage is really high in the city. So we need to create the awareness to them. So we developed a solution named as EcoShift, where we developed the solution is kind of a web application, which can then be converted into kind of a tablet, which can be installed at each person's home, where they can all the time monitor the peak usage timing of the applications. Like right now, if it's in Houston, it's a peak hour, or it's a green band. We divided the time, so like 24-hour time in 4 bands: red band, blue band, green band. So based on these bands, if it's like between 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., the band is red band, and there you will be penalized if you do a heavy usage of electricity. But if you do the same thing in the night, you will be rewarded compensation for that. So we developed this gamified this awareness plan, so people will be more aware about their usage, and they can track what they want to use.
Hello, my name is Chantal Orsini. I'm content
concentrating, and I have a concentration in synthetic biology and genetic engineering. I helped with the EcoShift to build the app and the program. We had other members who focused on the marketing. So the main goal, as he said, was to help users prioritize when and what time to use certain appliances.
Hi, my name is Nick Rutsky. I take not too much credit. I was a mentor of EcoShift. They did majority of the jobs. They're a great team, and yeah, thank you.
So one point I would like to make for the audience here about EcoShift is Chantel is a high school student, and her innovation is a family event. Her father spent the entire day to bring her to the event and stayed there the whole day. So I thought that was very impressive for me, who believes in innovation as a family event, right? So thanks to your dad, right? All right, the next team we have is NeighborGrid.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm just.
Remember, you got a big team, only your names and your projects.
Yeah, that's
Okay, cool.
Hello, we're NeighborGrid from the hackathon, and my name is Eli. I'm a recent UH grad in data science. Just got my master's a few months ago, and so I worked with the data during our project, and we kind of learned that the residential area of energy needs some fixing, and we need to push the hours from the peak hours at 3 p.m. away from 3 p.m. so we can reduce cost.
Hi everyone, I'm Aretro. I'm a current master's student at UT doing my master's in building energy systems, and we built NeighborGrid. As the name suggests, NeighborGrid is nothing but enabling our neighbors to share power among themselves and participate and help themselves strive for independence and interdependence for power. That's what we did.
Hi everyone, my name is Christy Dong. My background was in engineering, and I worked in industry for a few years, and I decided that I feel like there's a lot more tool in data science and AI field I can learn. So that's why I'm here, back to being a grad student. I'm doing a master in data science and AI at the University of Houston. And I came across this amazing event. I'm really excited to participate. So we developed this solution, NeighborGrid, and one of the byproduct of this solution, I think, can be greatly beneficial to not just ERCOT, energy provider, but also the regular customer. Because at first we were trying to approach the data set that we would provide it, but when talking to ERCOT and the energy provider, I feel like there are a missing puzzle, which is data. To be able to build all this sophisticated machine learning model, we are lacking data, and NeighborGrid is able to provide a solution, and then from that data, we can do a lot of amazing things with it. So, just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you guys are just staying here. Last but not the least, we will call ShiftGrid, and you guys might just want to come and wait over there.
Guys, stay.
Oh, I should.
Hey,
Yeah.
so
ShiftGrid is
present your
good.
name
Oh,
and your
great.
project,
Good, good.
and
No, no,
we'll
absolutely.
get going. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and then at the end, all of them, and then I'll talk. Shouldn't I then? do
Hello,
it?
my name
Yeah.
is Nishra Bahasi, and I'm here
Yes,
presenting Shift
I will
Grid
do the
team.
racket.
So we
Yeah,
know
no, I
that
know.
in North America we have three
I also
power
want
grids:
to say that
the
I'm
Eastern
representing all the
Interconnection, the
judges,
Western
right?
Interconnection,
So-
and ERCOT, which means that on its own power grid,
cut off from the rest of the United States. So when things go wrong, we cannot call for backup. And this is why we need to understand and control more our energy consumption. And this is where our team created ShiftGrid, a platform that bridges the gap between the power suppliers and the customers. The first platform we have is a dashboard that provides the power suppliers with a really detailed data analytics of the real-time consumption and the load of the power in different areas of Texas, and also give them more options to control their data simulation conditions. For example, they control the percentage of the shift, which means they can, for example, they say that we can guess that our users will shift 10% of their power consumption from the peak hours to different hours of the day, and they can see the detailed and the predicted new peak hours, the power and the money saved from that shift. And also they have the option to control the weather conditions that they think might eager more power consumption. For example, they control the threshold of both the temperature and the humidity, because when temperature is high, the AC consumption is high, so the load is higher too. And they can send customed and automated alerts to users. And on the user side, they have their own user-friendly application where they will receive real-time alerts for the changes of the weather, and also they will have custom suggestions of their energy consumption. For example, we will provide them with a detailed and well-analyzed plan for their energy consumption. For example, they might charge their EVs from 12 to 3 p.m. outside of the peak hours, and we will tell them this is how much money they will save. Because if you don't know, the price of the energy during the peak hour is double outside of the peak hours. For example, we'll tell them that they might use their power supplies or their laundry outside of the peak hours. And everything and all of these activities will be organized in a calendar with the exact details of the time and the dates. And we will also provide them with the weekly reports of their consumption and how much energy and money they saved from following our plan. This is basically our application. It's it's just bridge the gap between the power suppliers and the real customers, because we don't communicate with them. We just provide them with the energy, and we don't tell them, maybe you might use your laundry outside of the peak hours and you will save your money and we will save our money too. Because when there will be an overload, the power suppliers will be obliged to buy the power in real-time prices that will be doubled the outside of peak hours. Thank you very much. That was our project.
On behalf of Katie, and are you going to introduce?
Yeah, so we are very grateful for our judges, and Sandy Guitar from TechSeed is representing us today. We actually had two other judges, one from ERCOT and one from Octopus Energy. They could not join us today, but we really appreciate their support.
Thank
she
you.
will.
So, yeah, my name is Sandy Guitar. Is this mic on?
It is.
Okay, my name is Sandy Guitar. As I mentioned, one of the three judges. I am the executive director of TechSeed. We are a nonprofit that supports the talent pipeline for energy innovation across 6 universities in Texas, one of which is U of H. So thank you for that. I'm also the founder of a venture capital investment company, so steeped in the innovation world. It was such a pleasure to judge the amazing teams, and each team here was really distinguished in different categories. So EcoShift, the first team that presented, we felt like they really captured the customer experience. They probably produced the most finished customer application as an end product and really excelled in that regard. But every team excelled in a different regard. ShiftGrid did some really good B2B analysis and some data curves that showed deep understanding of the need for load balancing. And that was a particular distinction of ShiftGrid. And then with NeighborGrid, we saw a lot of innovative thinking, something that, real creative thinking about how to build a sort of many-to-many customer relationship model with HOAs as an example, as well as a lot of good data analysis, again, on the load balance problem. They went three ways. They understood the customer relationship, the B2B relationship, and then sort of the internal analysis that was needed. So as you can see, all three groups excelled, and we as judges had a difficult time deciding which of those vectors was really the most important to us. At the end of the day, we picked the most innovative solution because we thought, in energy innovation, that's where we want our talent really to lean in. And as a result, I am absolutely delighted to say that Neighbor Grid is our winning group. Everybody got one? Great. Well, thank you so much again. And a round of applause really for every group. Thank you.
We are very grateful for all our students who came out today, and we are very grateful to all our sponsors at the event. We would especially like to thank Houston Energy and Climate Week for helping us through the entire event. And just before we end, we're going to tell a power joke, because I'm not sure everyone in the audience is still alive. So let's start with, what do you call blackout? A current event. And we'll go with one more, just to make sure you're still here. What does wind think of solar? Close. They're a big fan.
Thank you so much, and another round of applause to the students. And all right. Next, I'd like to introduce
about the stuff that we did. Speak with you maybe after some time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Good morning, good morning. My name's Rachel, and this is John Edward. We are so excited to be here performing for you guys. This first song is about the beauty of nature.
Soaked to the bone, but it feels so nice. Wrap me up, it's warm inside. Fill my cup up, down we slide. Swept away, I belong to the tide. Peace carried on a breeze says something to me that I can't get off my mind. And I don't want to leave till it shakes me down and I feel it in my spine. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh. Soaked to the bone, but it feels so nice. Wrap me up, it's warm inside. Fill my cup up, down we slide. Swept away, I belong to the tide. Feathered footsteps, feet, silk sheets on me. Darkness I leave behind. And the water runs clean as a sunbeam gleam, calmly calling me to rise, calling me to rise, calling me to rise, calmly calling me to rise, calling me to rise. Soaked to the bone, but it feels so nice. Wrap me up, it's warm inside. Fill my cup up, down we slide. Swept away, I belong to the tide. Calling me to rise, 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 calling me to rise.
Thank you guys so much. Every once in a while we have a bad morning, things go wrong. You just have to pause for a minute, keep things moving, keep it positive.
Almost lost it there for a minute. Shot the messenger unintended. I'm embarrassed, but I'll admit it. Might have been a villain if I didn't. Here's a cookie. Wait, you want to? Bad I didn't. Bring 'em for you. You're embarrassed, but won't admit it. Crying in your milk like you didn't get it. Now it's shaping up. Try not to run. Life keeps coming strong. Yeah, it's up and it's down. Pain might stick around for a minute. World keeps spinning around, and I'm game, yeah, I'm down. So let me break this down for a minute. Let my head down, shake it all out, turn it around, then flip it upside down. Ow! As you open the oven door, almost had it there for a minute. Drop the sheet, oops, now they're finished. I'm embarrassed, don't you know it? If we can't eat the dough, maybe we should throw it. Now it's shaping up. Try not to run. Maybe open up. We're allowed to have fun. Life keeps coming strong. Yeah, it's up and it's down. Pain might stick around, but only for a minute. World keeps spinning around, and I'm game, yeah, I'm down. So let me break this down for a minute. Let my head down, shake it all out, turn it around, then flip it for a minute. Let my head down, shake it all out, turn it around, then flip it for a minute. Let my head down, shake it all out, turn it around, then flip it for a minute. Let my head down, shake it all out, turn it around, then flip it. 'Cause your life keeps coming strong. Yeah, it's up and it's down. Pain might stick around for a minute. World keeps spinning around, and I'm game, yeah, I'm down. So let me break this down for a minute. Life keeps coming strong. Yeah, it's up and it's down. Pain might stick around for a minute. World keeps spinning around, and I'm game, yeah, I'm down. So let me break this down for a minute. Life keeps coming strong. Yeah, it's up and it's down. Pain might stick around for a minute. World keeps spinning around, and I'm game, yeah, I'm down. So let me break this down for a minute.
Thank you guys.
Why can't I ignore the boy who lives next door? He don't even know my name, just what I wasn't looking for. Maybe we're strangers. still only neighbors. Lately he's hiding smiles I am finding, the mysterious kind, yeah, the kind that collide, still so inviting. A heart down the hall, I can't help but call. Won't you catch me? I'm falling. Why can't I ignore the boy who lives next door? He don't even know my name. I want the boy who lives next door. What's he waiting for? He don't even know my name. Just what I wasn't looking for. Pushing it further, further and further. Something that ties, yeah, it ties up my mind. Still far from over. Maybe we're strangers. My favorite flavor. The curious kind, yeah, the kind that I like. Still only neighbors. A heart down the hall, I can't help but call. Won't you catch me? I'm falling. Why can't I ignore the boy who lives next door? He don't even know my name. I want the boy who lives next door. What's he waiting for? He don't even know my name. Just what I wasn't looking for. Just what I wasn't looking for. Just what I wasn't looking for. Just what I wasn't looking for.
Thank you guys.
It's looking like you're feeling it's the end of the world. But it's not over, my supernova. You may fall before you rise. Sometimes stars die, but there's beauty in the darkest nights. No eyes fly blind, that's where you'll find your light. And ray, ray, radiate, light it up, illuminate. Star child, you were born to shine. Ray, ray, radiate, come, let's fly away. Air feels better here on cloud nine. Shine, shine, shine on the darkest night. Shine, 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 show the world your light. You're burning like a comet at the end of the world. It won't be easy, but believe me, there's a reason you should try. Sometimes stars die, but there's beauty in the darkest nights. No eyes fly blind, that's where you'll find your light. And ray, ray, radiate, light it up, illuminate. Star child, you were born to shine. Ray, ray, radiate, come, let's fly away. Air feels better here on cloud nine. Shine, shine, shine on the darkest night. Shine, 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 show the world your light. Sometimes stars die, but there's beauty in the darkest nights. No eyes fly blind, that's where you'll find your light. And ray, ray, radiate, light it up, illuminate. Star child, you were born to shine. Ray, ray, radiate, come, let's fly away. Air feels better here on cloud nine. Shine, shine, shine on the darkest night. Shine, 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 show the world your light. It's looking like you're feeling it's the end of the world.
Thank you guys.
Must have dreamt of a four-leaf clover, birds chirp from the telephone line. Coffee is right, classic Folgers, fridge more stocked than a retail grocer. It's 75, sun in the sky, wind in my hair, top down and I can't lie. No bad vibes, I'm L-U-C-K-Y. I'm L-U-C-K-Y. I feel so alive. L-U-C-K-Y. It's a lucky life, yeah. L-U-C-K-Y. I feel so alive. L-U-C-K-Y. It's a lucky life. Must have dreamt of a four-leaf clover, birds chirp from the telephone line. Coffee is right, classic Folgers, fridge more stocked than a retail grocer. It's 75, sun in the sky, wind in my hair, top down and I can't lie. No bad vibes, I'm L-U-C-K-Y. I'm L-U-C-K-Y. I feel so alive. L-U-C-K-Y. It's a lucky life, yeah. L-U-C-K-Y. I feel so alive. L-U-C-K-Y. It's a lucky life. It's a lucky life.
Thank you so much. We have one last song for. Oh. No, no. Oh. We have one last one for you. It's our favorite Bill Withers song.
When I wake up in the morning, love, and the sunlight hurts my eyes, something without warning, love, bears heavy on my mind. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. A lovely day. Lovely day. When the day that lies ahead of me feels impossible to face, when someone else instead of me always seems to know the way, then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, oh, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. A lovely day. When the day that lies ahead of me feels impossible to face, when someone else instead of me always seems to know the way, then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel Winters. That was amazing. Next, I would like to introduce Lindsay Rowe. She is the president of the nonprofit Allies in Energy, and I'd like to let's welcome her to the stage.
One more panel for you. This is going to be more of a conversation about resilience, and we've talked a lot today about the power of and how we all can play a part in that. So I'm really excited to have our next two panelists join us for that conversation. So please join me in welcoming Angela Blanchard and Francisco Sanchez Jr. Perfect. So again, I mentioned that this is a discussion on kind of the power of resilience and how everyone can be a part of that. And we've had a full week of programming, and so now people are going to leave, and what does this mean, and how can we do some stuff together? So first, I want to take some time for each of you to kind of give your perspective on what does resilience mean, and how can that play a role, and how do different intersections come together when we talk about resilience. So Francisco, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, Lindsay, first of all, thank you and for the incredible team for putting an amazing Houston Energy and Climate Week together. And I know Angela will talk about just sort of some of these points, but for me personally, why it's important talking about resilience. So I'm the son of immigrant and migrant farm workers. We would go from South Texas to Florida, Indiana, and Ohio. My parents would just do the loop, right? And it wasn't until I was 3 when my sister was born that they settled in Houston for the oil boom. Right? And my dad became a welder, my mom became a crossing guard, so that the only thing my sister and I would have to pick was our own destinies. And so that is how we turn economic opportunity into resilience. And so I'm afraid if we do not pivot when it comes to this, that those opportunities won't be available for kids in this region if we don't harness that. And so, I'm sure you've heard this throughout the week, and you hear it all the time. Houston is the third largest city, and Harris County is the third largest county, Houston the fourth largest city. And look, I'm a Texan. I love me some bragging rights, but it misses the point. Houston is an essential region that fuels the nation and powers the world. And I had the opportunity for former President Biden to go to about 30 states, more than 200 cities. And I can tell you, I'm a little biased, but I can tell you that there is no region more essential we have the most promise, the most potential, and the most grit. And we are a heartbeat of a national economy. But if we want to keep that position, we have to solve for two things: opportunity and risk. And it comes down to everything I think will tie around our energy sector. And so, the title Energy Capital of the World is up for grabs. Fossil fuels account for about 86%, or they meet about 86% of global demand, but that's not enough, and it won't be enough. So for us, the energy transition is not only inevitable, it is urgent. And so I think that as you look at who the players are going to be, and this is why Climate Energy Week is important, it won't be the big names that are at the front end of this, right? It will be our engineers with a breakthrough idea that have a lot of ambition. And if we don't invest here, they won't build here. And you look at the Texas Medical Center, right, $47 billion in our regional economy, medical miracles every day, but Dubai is nipping at our heels with their medical tourism. And if we don't keep investing, and if we don't find a way to fund what the federal government is pulling back on AI and medical research, that won't be there, and that's important to resilience. And when it comes to aerospace, it was about this month, sometime in the 60s, it was that JFK here came and said that we don't do things like go to the moon here because it's easy, we do it because it's hard. Houston's place in space comes to whether or not we are going to leverage partnerships between public and private to, as private spaceflight takes off and is booming, how do we leverage that here in our local economy to figure out how we move people on Earth and how we live here on Earth, and that's critically essential. And so that's all the opportunity that we have, including everything that you've talked about this week. But we have to protect it. And here's the challenge. We have chosen to stake our lives and livelihoods and hopes for the future in a prime hurricane landing zone that averages a presidentially declared disaster about every 9 months, right? And all that here is at risk. And we just had the 20th anniversary of Katrina. I think we have to remember now that if it weren't for the 1900 storm that leveled Galveston and lost about 8,000 lives, we might just still be a suburb of the island. And on the 20th anniversary of Katrina, we have to remember that Katrina and Harvey are tied as the most costly storms in our nation's history. And Houston was right here, smack dab in the center. And unfortunately, there will be a larger storm in the future that eclipses those, probably right here, right? And when it comes to how we protect our transportation systems and all of these things, I think I spent about the past 3 years in D.C. before I got to come back home. And D.C. is a place of monuments. There probably was not a single place that I stood where I couldn't see a monument. And we got them here. We got the San Jacinto Monument. Across from town, we've got in Centennial Park, a monument to George H.W. Bush, our former president. But can you imagine, and we got San Jacinto, all of these things here, can you imagine if we looked at the future with this opportunity, embrace the risk, embrace the opportunity, and if this was a region where our monuments were infrastructure that both met that opportunity and also protected them from the risks that are going to come, right? And can you imagine when it comes just to, and we've done it before, look at the Texas Medical Center. During Tropical Storm Allison, $6 billion in damage, 90,000 research animals lost, and 60,000 tumor samples, along with the life-saving science and knowledge that was behind that. But we came together as a community, and we said that will never happen again. And so even during Hurricane Harvey, 60 inches of rain across 10,000 square miles and 300,000 homes flooded, it did not flood. The medical center stayed dry, right? And that is incredible. And for perspective, that's enough water that moved the tectonic plates under our feet in Texas. But in the shadow of those facilities that are first-rate, world-class, and second to none, are neighborhoods that are on the margins, where the sidewalks are cracked, the streets are riddled with potholes, and there's not a single tree in sight. But also in the shadow of those facilities are neighborhoods that anybody here would be happy to live in, right? The sidewalks are pristine, the streets are smooth, and there's a canopy of trees over those neighborhoods. But you know what they have in common? Is far too often there is someone on night watch, and they are looking out the window as the rain is coming down and the water is swelling up to see if it's going to come to the curb, if it's going to come to the lawn, if the water is going to reach the porch, and if it's going to go through the front door. So they can wake up their family and save what they can. I don't mean that as a critique of what we did at the medical center. It means that we can be resilient. What I'm saying is that if it's good enough for the medical center, it should be good enough for the neighborhoods of doctors and nurses and janitors and cafeteria workers and those parking lot attendants that make it run. And so I think when we look at resilience and how we protect all the infrastructure that we're building, there's a strong correlation in terms of our ability to seize this economic opportunity, but also protect it. We need to stop looking at resilience as an inconvenient investment, but rather it is our region's most essential economic imperative and the kind of once-in-a-lifetime generations to reimagine our legacy industries so we can build a community where local economies can thrive, small business can grow, and people can prosper.
Absolutely. So, Angela, in your perspective too, you've worked internationally helping build communities. So kind of where do you see resilience and kind of your perspective on the entire idea of what do we need to be resilient?
So thank you. Thanks for having both of us. Generally, Francisco and I are having these conversations with one another on an almost everyday basis. So you're getting to hear what he and I have talked about for years. We look back and we look forward for what can be and should be done in this region. The fundamental element of resilience is the individual. Resilience is really the ability of any system to respond and recover after some form of upheaval or shock. And as individuals, many of us, I dare say, if I were to ask you to raise your hand and you live in this region, you have undergone some form of personal upheaval. 70% of the people in this region came from somewhere else and generally came because what they faced in the place they are from was much harder than what they expected to find here. So the roots of resilience in this region are in people and the ability of people here to go on after unthinkable events. With that in mind, I've always believed that the measure of a great city is not who's there, it's who can make it there. And for all of us to make it here, we have to make these investments in infrastructure. We have to value what affects us all. Had you walked in here today and the lights not worked, the temperature would not be comfortable, the stage had holes in it, you would not expect a production that actually served a purpose, because the fundamentals of what makes our voices audible and our message understandable are the elements of infrastructure provided by the university. So we have embraced and we have contended with a narrative that argues for individual or groups instead of the collective whole. So one of the questions I'm asked is, what can an individual do? Very little. Join together. The idea that we are supposed to, it's a very American thing. And when I work internationally, I see much less of this narrative that centers the individual and what they heroically must do and what individuals must start and what individuals must invest in. You see much more attention paid to collective, the community, the fundamental unit, individual in solidarity with others. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned as I've worked around the world in the aftermath of disasters is I've seen the way people and communities come together, and their fascination with Houston centers around not all these important industries that actually make us essential to the world, that we have the responsibility to keep operable. But what fascinates them is what we as individuals do in coming together after disasters to help one another. Francisco mentioned Katrina, and we just recently observed that anniversary. I want to call your attention to this one important fact. Most of us would not be able to recall the hurricane that struck the Gulf Coast, New Orleans and Mississippi, and really all of Louisiana and Mississippi, had it not been for the failure of the levees. It was a combination of a natural disaster and the collapse of a critical piece of infrastructure. The levees failed in 17 places, and we knew it. We knew it. The same way we know Houston is vulnerable, the same way we know that we haven't met the responsibility for drainage, we haven't met the responsibility for power protection for critical city assets. We knew it. But the choices were made to invest in things and other things, not those things that we all rely upon. So with the theme of "and," it is not the individual versus the institution. It's not the individual versus the community. It's not the individual or any group versus any other group. It's what we're willing to commit to collectively to make this region stronger, safer, and more conducive to the flourishing of people that are coming here from all over the world, still counting on this to be a better place for them than the one they're coming from. And I say whether you came from a tiny town in Texas or a small village in Pakistan, staking our future in this region means that we commit collectively to the fundamentals of what makes it strong and what makes it possible for all of us to go on when unthinkable events occur. And they will. It's a hard thing to say to people, we don't have this contract with the universe that says we do all this and storms pass us by. In the Western world, we've purchased safety, security, and predictability at the expense of almost everything else. But that's not the terms and condition. In the fine print of being alive, in the fine print of being on Earth, is anything can happen, and your life can be disrupted at any time. So what we have counted on is strong institutions, made stronger by commitments of individuals to the kinds of changes within those institutions that respond to current conditions. So ask all of you to think about the institutions, communities, and groups you belong to and contemplate what are the investments you make in terms of your time, energy, treasure, et cetera, that actually make those institutions better prepared to evolve in response to the conditions we find ourselves in now.
I think it's kind of powerful too. You talk about how we're going on the power of and what needs to happen and trying to see the future. And engineers talk about the Swiss cheese effect, right? How can we remove as many holes by having those redundancies? And it takes us having multiple perspectives and making sure that we have different viewpoints to see what are we missing, what are our blind spots. So I think Anne speaks to that. So with that, have you ever, or can you give an example of when there's been unlikely partnerships that have really shown and shine that light on, okay, groups that might not collaborate or collaborating, individuals who might not get involved or getting involved, and look at what the outcome is?
Yeah, sure. I think that's part of, I think we talk a little bit about, this is innovation and inclusion, right? We talked about that sort of in the medical center and how innovation, we need to be inclusive of some opportunities here. And so this is where, in terms of an action item, this is where people need to get involved and go into the rooms that you haven't been before. And to your analogy, I think we've got to be able to connect those dots, and we're in this together, and I think we need to stop answering this thing of false choices, right? You can have growth and resilience, right? If we're going to grow this economy, we need to be resilient. So this is where we need to get small business owners involved, use the workforce. I think we need to do a better job of actually convening and simply going to the table where people haven't been before. And that's, again, part of innovation and inclusion. Bringing those external ideas that we may not be the first things that are top of mind is absolutely essential to the success of getting this done.
So every single thing that we like to brag about in this region, all of the major strategic investments of the past were all a coalition of strange bedfellows. And that may just seem very old-fashioned to people now, where in a time where we regularly draw such big lines in the sand that say, if you can't adopt all of this, I can't work with you on anything. While I understand that, I know that is in itself a recipe for disaster. The coalitions of the past were based upon, I can't work with you on anything but the Port of Houston. So I will do that because that's in the common interest, and I'm going to make those investments despite the fact that I disagree with you on 10 out of 11 of the rest of the things you think. So while we may find that painfully challenging at times, my recent commitment to the city of Houston, I worked for 18 months helping set up several initiatives at the city, one of which was power protection for critical city assets. And I watched as the mayor and the rest of the team worked and forged conversations, constructive dialogue with people politically very different than perhaps those at the city of Houston. And we did it because we placed the interest and the safety and security and resilience of the people of this region way out in front of any personal animus or frustration or agenda that we might have. That is not always easy, but in doing that, we were able to attract funding and support and commitment to the region that is essential and vital. I think this is the hardest thing we do now, and it requires a kind of self-management and a kind of faith and commitment to something larger than ourselves. And that commitment calls me to actually set aside whatever my personal discomforts and frustrations may be, the threats and anxieties I may find myself experiencing, and think, what can we do for the common good here that really matters? And also, here's a tough challenge. Whatever we set out to do has to be aligned over time. And for those of you, thank God, who are here that are much younger, yay, we don't often talk enough about how long it takes. The value of institutions is institutions preserve goals that will have to be fulfilled over multiple administrations. In the case of, for example, the Ike Dike or our coastal protection, over generations. Last year, someone spoke about the fact that the engineers that will work on that coastal protection for this region are in middle school now. So we want strong institutions, so those things that we all need that must be carried out over time with political will and funding and talent and ability. The investments we make in people are everlasting in the sense that if I strengthen what you're getting in terms of your education, in terms of your abilities, that's my strong investment in the future that the right people with the right knowledge will be there to do the things that need to be done, generationally speaking. To think in terms of the whole and to think generationally instead of the individual and the now, while holding both, is the real dichotomy and challenge of leadership. Both, every day. That's the big and.
Yeah. And I think that, we've hit on a couple things. People are so important, right?
Yeah.
And then also the and multiple entities and people working together. So at opening, Katie had everybody shouting HO Houston, talking about our role and how we're playing into this. So what gives you hope that people and Houston are going to be the place that is able to lead us through this transition for the next 30 years?
Yeah, so I think I get a little competitive. I got to work a little bit with Wes Moore when I was overseeing the economic response to the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore. And he wants to make Maryland a destination for 100% jobs for people with college degrees. I would like to see Houston with the opportunities here in this changing economy to make this the destination for people that don't have a college degree. In terms of systems thinking, we need to sort of leverage everybody's engagement on this. And this is sort of like federal investment, private investment, and local priorities. And we can do that. And so this is, this is my first time out of government in about 20 years. And so what I'm enjoying very much about this role is being able to look across the country. And so we've had the opportunity to manage about $100 billion in grants in general. And it really comes to how do we capital stack every resource available, whether it's private, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whether it's local. How do we maximize the outputs of that? And how do we align that with local priorities? And Houston's priorities are going to be incredibly different than anybody else's. And so I think as we're talking about scarce resources, maximizing outcomes with they might be starting out in middle school and working on the Ike Dike, but these problems are pressing and they're pressing now. So I think the strength that we have here is being able to rely on those kind of strategies of working together, maximizing every dollar and making sure that we are moving as quickly as we can to the solutions that we need.
So there are four forces reshaping the world. One of them is migration. As we sit here today, some 125 million people have been forcibly displaced from home. There are some rootless, stateless, some will never again be home. And in that vast migratory pressure, and they're flooding into cities, which leads us to the second force reshaping the world. Some few years ago, we became the most urbanized world that we've ever lived in as human beings, more people in cities than in rural areas. And in cities are expected, cities and regions are expected to now solve problems that used to be the purview of the national or federal level government, but cities are contending with all of those. The third, of course, is climate change. Part of the reason we're here today is in recognition of the fact that as war and weather upend our world, we're also a place where we're trying to find solutions. And then the fourth is something that is very much a part of the Houston story, and that's globalization. A highly politicized term, but actually interdependence, meaning that nothing we do here is without ramifications all over the world, and things that happen everywhere else in the world impact what happens in Houston, because as Francisco mentioned, whether it's the port or energy or the med center or any one of the drivers of this region, all of them are international in character. So these four forces are reshaping the world, and they all intersect in this region. There is no more, in my argument, similar to Francisco's, there is no more important laboratory or no more significant laboratory in the country than this region. For what we solve here, what we accomplish here, has ramifications for the country and the world. If you're working here, and if you're working on any of these problems or challenges, then you're actually serving not only this region, but everyone else as well. I will, one of my students, when I was teaching at Brown, accused me, really, you're just a humanitarian, he says, and with a slight note of disappointment. And I would say that's probably true, and that I do believe that the investments, the most important investments we make are the ones we're making here in this institution, and those are the investments we make in one another, in our health, in our education, in our well-being. And fundamentally, how we respond to challenges turns on the beliefs we hold about one another. If I believe you to be valuable, then when you flood into my city, I look at you as the asset. I look at you in terms of the potential you represent for contributing to meeting these challenges. If we believe about one another that we're in this together, and also that everything that you offer is needed and everything I have to give is welcomed, that's the fundamental unit of a strong society. Those beliefs we have about each other and the constant work we do to keep ourselves in a place of honoring one another's humanity. You ask about hope. I've been told I have an unshakable belief in the human spirit, and this is true. The resiliency, the enduring nature of the human spirit. I think within us, and I see it over and over again, you see it too, in the aftermath of every disaster, is our deep desire to be there for one another, to commit to one another, to help one another. So we walk forward knowing that potential is there at all times. In the last few disasters, the resource we have to turn away is the hundreds, sometimes thousands of people who want to help. So remember, that's who we really are. Whatever you read in the headlines, the reality is on the ground, where we do deeply care about each other and we believe we're worth it.
I love that. And so as we kind of wrap up this week and we wrap up this conversation, I ask each of you, we've talked about we need to plug in. Maybe one thing that somebody can carry forward today to help them, help the community, help Houston achieve what we think we can and will need to achieve as an energy transition capital of the world, as a resilient city that can carry that forward for the next 30 years.
So whether you're going to be an engineer, whether you're going to go to our medical school here at the University of Houston, or whether you go to the hobby school and shape policy, I want you to go back and I got some homework, right? So I want you to imagine a region that seizes our economic potential today and protects it from the ability to be washed away. I want you to imagine a region where our transportation systems, right, adapt to the weather, where our buildings, right, create their own energy for managing the stormwater. I want you to imagine a region where, I don't know how many of you got caught in that thunderstorm a couple of weekends ago, right, that was flooding our roadways and our underpasses and our feeder roads. Imagine a region, right, where you, those road systems alert you as a driver, alert our metros, alert our ambulances, alert our fire departments and police vehicles. Imagine that and find a way in your area of expertise in what you're going to do to demand it from policymakers, to institute that in your career and start making resilience and tying it to economic opportunity in everything that you do as you go out in the workforce or wherever it is you're going to apply your talents and your skills.
I think that's a great place to wrap up. I would say whatever keeps you up at night, whatever gets you up in the morning, you know best where your deepest interests and commitments lie, and do that.
I love that. That's great. I think that we all have a passion for the future, And so just leaning into that passion will be
Yes.
good for the whole city. So thank you both. Angela, Francisco, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for allowing us to be here.
Thank you, guys. Oh, that's my mic was on. Was that great? That was wonderful.
How's everybody feeling? All right. It's awesome. Gosh, we did this a year ago. We came out here, and actually it was a different auditorium. It's a different stage. How are you feeling?
Good. I think I need another mic.
Oh, okay.
We can share a mic. Okay, awesome. We share
I feel good.
Yes.
So I just wanted to land or leave you guys with a story I think is important that we go tell everybody if you want to tell everybody, but you need to know. 8 years ago, we had a horrific hurricane in this region, Hurricane Harvey. And at the time, I had started a business called Pink Petro and getting really loud on Facebook about women and oil and gas and all of that. And we lost our home and we lost the business in the same day. And I was very upset with our former mayor because he did not come to my side of town. And what I learned very quickly was that we were inundated and that we were just not prepared. Our city was not prepared. Our county wasn't prepared. Our businesses were not prepared. We were completely submerged. And I did not like the mayor then. A year later, he showed up at my door and on the anniversary of Harvey and said, I need your help. I need you to help us. I need us to all come together and work together to solve this challenge. It's got to be everybody. It can't just be one side. And that was one of the things I loved about Sylvester Turner. And so that was 8 years ago, and he said, do you think we could create something like the rodeo for energy? And I said, well, we gotta get climate, energy and climate. And so this was 8 years ago before any of the things you see happening across town. And then I got to meet this woman who's amazing because she brought Greentown, Houston, to Houston, right? She got the money going. She got the fire started, and it has just blown up in such a great way. And it means so much to me that we have a solution. We have to work together. We can't live in our silos. We can't live in our neighborhoods and not know that our neighbors are here, right, to support and help us. So it's going to take all of us to do this work.
So 8 years ago, we started with this. Katie and I have created so many things, sometimes together, sometimes separately, but always relying on our support and the support of all of you. You know, there's a lot of corporations, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of different interests, but at the end of the day, the power of the power of the people is really what matters. And this week wouldn't have been possible with all your individual supports. And I'm talking people who volunteered. We have so many volunteers, so a big shout out to all of the volunteers that have been not only today, but all over the week doing everything behind the scenes to carrying things. And it's been like amazing. All of the arts, all of the artists. This is a community of so big shout out. I think what Katie and I do is just shed a light on people who sometimes are not seen, and we also empower and give permission. You know, there's a lot of people that think, why us? Who do we think we are? We think we are just here to augment being that magnifying glass for everybody else, and we just put together platforms so that people can shine and can be seen. So this is what we do. We work with everybody. There's no hidden agenda. We want to make this better, bigger, and make you dream bigger for next year. How can we empower you? This is your week, so there's a lot that can be done. But for sure, we want to make it bigger. I love beginnings. I always think beginnings are great. When you struggle, when your events are small, maybe because I've made things that became big, I cherish a lot the beginnings. I cherish a lot the beginnings of Greentown. I cherish a lot the beginnings of funds that I put together, just because that's when the most fun happens. And sometimes we want to rush so much and make it big that you miss on the fun of the small things, and when you struggle and just scramble to get things going. So let's enjoy the journey. We are fundraising, right, to make Allies in Energy bigger so that we can get more volunteers, more anchor events. This year we got 100 events, 5 anchor events that were amazing, and you saw 8 anchor, my goodness, 8, sorry. I was only thinking about not the weekends, you know, the week has more days than 5. So that's amazing, and we want to make it a lot bigger. I love when the events start small and the following year they triple or quadruple in size, and that's what we're here for, to make sure that you get all of the help with volunteers, materials, venues, to make your events bigger, better, but let's not forget what events are for also, right? This is not one time in the year and then, you know, we all sing and hold hands and kumbaya and then we forget about it till next year. The work starts now. So next year we're going to be talking about things that started here, like the hackathon ideas that will become companies and we're going to see again. So please make sure you hold each other accountable, because this is an everyday grind, and today we are showcasing and celebrating, but the work, the hard work, because we do hard things, starts now.
Thanks everybody for being here, and have a safe weekend. One last thing, Sunday. So there's something I'll call Sunday, which is awesome. The free market has spoken. Renewable energy is here now. So Sunday Houston is this Sunday. So I guess we will be going Sunday to Sunday next year. You can go to sundayhouston.org, and there is a bunch of information in the back as you head out of the theater. And then you wanted to say one more thing?
I wanted to celebrate Ingrid again. I feel I'm singing her praises every day, but Ingrid, she's our Scott Gale Award community recipient. As you know, Scott Gale was working with Halliburton Labs, but he was an ecosystem builder like we are. You know, we thought about the Climate Week together. He made sure he rallied all of the right people to put the week together. And he passed away right after the first inaugural Climate Week that he helped create with us. And I told him before he passed away that he would be the first ever recipient of our community award, and then this community award would have his name. So he was really, really honored. And it is our honor to hand it over to the co-chair of the Climate Week this year, and also the co-chair of our own Energy Tech Nexus Pilotathon, Ingrid Velasco, because I don't know what to say anymore, because I feel like I've said everything. Not only she's amazing, she's super organized, she rallies everybody, but also she has the biggest soul and the greatest smile. So I'm going to pass it over to her.
Wow, I mean, I'm speechless. It's been an experience getting ready for this week, interacting with so many people in the community, kind of reflecting. I'll keep this short because I know you guys are probably like, it's lunchtime, my stomach is already growling. But to get the opportunity to go talk to our city council members and invite them to this event, go to the University of Houston downtown and invite students to this event. So I am just honored to have been able to take this position and really activate as many people as I could in the community to talk about climate action and sustainability. we'll continue this throughout the year, just like Juliana and Katie said. So invite you guys to, find us online and connect. I'm happy to have a coffee with you and just share more information about it and see where you could get plugged in. And with that, we will end this session. Oh, wow, it's a wrap, guys.